All right. Well, let's kick this thing. We'll get it started. So welcome back. I know
Thanks.
this will be the first time everybody's heard you.
Right.
I didn't take any notes, or I had notes, but I didn't listen to any of my
Perfectly
notes
fine.
from the last one. So I'll feel free to explain stuff. I don't want to gloss over anything since we already recorded once, but
Right.
feel free to go as in depth with stuff that you want. So let's start from the beginning. Was anyone in your family in the military?
Not immediate family, but I had some uncles that we actually covered every branch except for Navy. So I had technically he's my cousin, but they're elder enough to me where I can consider them uncles.
Yeah.
But I had a uncle in the Air Force. He was a chief master sergeant in the Air Force, and I had a lieutenant colonel in the Army and a major in the Marine Corps. And then my grandfather
Nice.
was in the Army. So,
All right. I was the other way. The only branch before me, everyone else had been in all the other branches. Marines was the only one no one had joined yet. So
nice.
I took the tough road, I guess.
Right on.
Did any of them have an influence on you joining, their experience, or did they talk to you about joining? Did you go to them for advice or anything?
Not really. I had always kind of had a military mindset, so to speak. I was always very interested in the military. It was just kind of a matter of what branch I would go to. For a long time, I thought, going to West Point would be cool, which, I was still pretty young and I didn't know much about it. I was like, oh, the Army has a college and they have a football team. Cool. So I was like, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then, I kind of started sorting some things out, and I was interested in the Air Force. Wanted to go into the Air Force and fly jets. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just go to the Air Force Academy then. Um,
hmm
and then when it came time to go to high school, one of my good buddies, who I was in middle school with, he was the only one going to this high school named East on the east side of Akron, and they had a Marine Corps JROTC program. So I chose that, and my two instructors were a former drill instructor and a former career recruiter. So at that point, my fate was pretty much sealed.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed the whole thing, and they
Yeah.
pretty much
I know
recruited me.
exactly what you're saying. My dad was in the Army and stuff, and then I think when I went to high school, I was actually kind of bummed when I found out that there wasn't an ROTC program. Because, I thought it was cool in middle school. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
they have a rifle team.
Right, yeah.
Turned out it was it's like an air rifle, but it's still something cool. And I'm like, that's so cool. And now I look back, I'm like, God, I'm glad I didn't do that. I don't know, that would have been.
Yeah,
I'm glad they didn't have one.
it's kind of funny because the circles I revolved in, I did martial arts for 15 years, and I competed in civilian marksmanship programs. So I did junior Olympics type stuff, 22 long rifles, some air rifle stuff. Then I got to do it at JROTC. I kind of feel like a lot of the things I did as a kid just kind of led me to joining the Marine Corps. I just
Yeah.
felt like my life
No,
was
that makes
headed in
sense.
that direction, generally speaking. But yeah, that
So what year
type of
did you
stuff I
join again?
love. I joined in 2007 in May.
And where'd you go to boot camp?
Parris Island, South Carolina, where the real Marines are made.
Parris Island, man. I know exactly. Actually, I posted an anti-Parris Island meme today. I was like, I gotta change it up. I gotta
Yeah.
represent the West Coast dudes. I put a meme up on my Instagram that said Parris Island's Mount Motherfucker, and it's just a little pile of sand on the side of the beach with some grass and shit in it.
Dude, so
Parris Island, you don't realize how small it is
yeah,
until you're not under control of drill instructors anymore.
absolutely.
When you're
That-
when we left for my family left for family day, I didn't even know how to get off the island.
Right.
And then I went back a separate time. I was God, I'm still sick.
Gotcha.
So the people that are listening to this that listen to the last episode, I talked about being sick. This is the next day. It's not another week.
Geez.
It's the next day. So I've been sick for a little bit. But anyway, I went back down there. I was at a school for MRAPs, and I was like, well, I'll go down to Parris Island. You know, I haven't been back since I was a recruit. So I drove over to Parris Island, dude. First thing is, when I drove on, no shit, I was a corporal. Yeah, I was a corporal then. And I remember driving on and immediately started shaking. I was like, oh, fuck. Just out of nothing. I mean, I don't even know what happened. I just started shaking when I was going across that
Muscle
bridge
memory.
that takes you on to Parris Island. And then I remember coming on and then being like, oh, there's the rifle range. And then like a half a second later, like, oh, there's 3rd Battalion. Like, I never realized that 3rd Battalion was literally right next to right by the rifle range.
Right.
Because I don't know what battalion you were in,
3rd.
but yeah. So, you know, were you on the, you were out, we were still out by themselves,
Yep.
right? Before they built the new barracks? Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize that was so close because, you know, the drill instructors march you in circles all over the place.
Right.
And, like, when you ride the bus and shit, your head's down the whole time. You don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, Parris Island. What'd you think about it?
I thought it was hot as fuck.
Yeah. Summertime? You went in the summertime?
Yeah, so I was there. We picked up in May, and well, technically we picked up in June because it was May 31st when I shipped. But yeah, I mean, you know, I remember them kind of like some people that I knew that had been down south. They're like, oh, you know, it's hot and humid. I'm like, okay, whatever that means, you know. And
Yeah.
I remember like kind of when it hit me one of the mornings, you know, they get you up at like 0 dark 30 to go PT and shit. So you're running down those concrete steps on the outside of the barracks, and it's still pitch black out, you know. And I remember them telling us about the flag conditions, you know, whether it was like, they had these
the black
flags
and all
based
that
off the barometric pressure, right? And, you know, black flag was like the worst, like no training. Then it was red flag, which you could train, but just be careful. Then yellow, green, and then I think white flag. Um, but I mean, it was like 04 in the morning, and it's already like a red flag. I'm like, holy shit! Like, how is it this warm? And I mean, I remember liking it that it was that warm in the morning, you know, because I hate getting up and going outside and it's cold as shit, you know. But
Yeah.
then I remember hating it during PT because it was just almost unbearably hot and humid, and it just, I mean, there was really no reprieve other than a little bit of shade. But yeah, you know, I generally speaking like enjoyed my time because
You enjoyed your time?
yeah, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why because I guess I'm a little bit of a sadist, I guess. I don't know, but I really loved when the senior drill instructor would just fuck up the whole platoon because then you watch the fat kids suffer and they're just, you know, out of shape and crying and shit and like falling down and shit. And I was like, I fucking love this. This is awesome, you know.
That's funny.
But yeah, you know, it was kind of one of those things that separated the men from the boys, which, like I said, in a sick way, I enjoyed it, you know. But you know, by the end, like everybody loved it, so to speak. You know, we were all equally miserable together, I guess. But
Yeah, that's true. You get points of misery there where for me it was like it just felt like it was never going to end. It was like,
yeah,
dude, this fucking like boot camp is never going to end. Like you've been here so long
hmm
and you just do the same shit every day and it's just like you're in Groundhog Day. And
well,
when it came to the end, I was like, I can't believe it's finally fucking over. Jesus.
well, for me, I kind of like gamed the game a little bit, because I like, you know, before I go into something, I like knowing everything I can know about it. I'm just weird like that. So
Mhm.
I mean, it like everything on boot camp is essentially open source documents. So like you can get online and look up everything. So I like had a printed out copy before I went to boot camp of, you know, what the phases consisted of, what I would be
Yeah, the
doing. So
schedule.
I pretty much knew how things were going to go on a daily basis. Well, I guess on a weekly basis more so, but yeah, you do get a little bit of that Groundhog Day feeling, and it's just like, you know, you're not really keeping track of time. It's just, you know, chow to chow, Sunday to Sunday sort of thing, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was
Yeah.
that was a little wild.
Then you do MCT and then move on to Fort Sill. What was your thoughts about going through fire support man course at Fort Sill or MASOC actually.
Yeah, makes like yeah. It was fun, like actually, because I guess that's kind of uh, your time where you start doing some actual like real Marine Corps shit.
Hmm.
In comparison to what you're going to be doing for the rest of your career. I mean, granted, you're still only scratching the surface, but I enjoyed learning the job of fire support man, understanding how artillery works. I mean, I hated the classroom portion, like I think everybody did, because it's just this almost nonsense of information. Like it just really doesn't even register in your brain until you just
Yeah.
kind of start doing it. So that whole death by PowerPoint. I remember just sitting there for hours, just Gunny McNeese trying to get the information to us in a way that we could digest it, but just still
Hmm.
being bored out of my skull, and I didn't study at all. I probably should have. But I was just like, this shit is way too fucking boring to actually study until we got to the actual, okay, here's the calls for fire that you will be doing,
Yeah.
and it was so
Even
bad.
that, dudes are passing out in
Oh
class.
yeah. Well, the crazy thing is, it's funny you mentioned that because like it's almost unbelievable what he did. Like kind of looking back on it, he would get these like hacky sack bags and he would
Mm.
wrap them in electrical tape, right? So, and he'd like pull the electrical tape taut, so it's these hard little bags, but still a little bit of give, So he designated squad leaders and then a class commander, and they'd sit on the ends and in the rear so they could see everybody. And it's this kind of like slanted down classroom toward the speaker, and
Hmm.
like in between like every two guys, there's like these high speed, low drag. I think they were like FDC computers or some shit like that. I forget who they were for, but they were like pretty expensive LCD screen things, And
Hmm.
he would give us the balls and he's like, hey, if anybody's, nodding off, just fucking crush them with the ball, right? So, the first couple weeks, everybody's just like kind of like tossing them like, hey man, wake up, bud, like, oh, thanks, man, but like, after you're a couple weeks in, like motherfuckers start getting savage with it, So like you would see like guys would like point out a dude sleeping, and then like you'd see the squad leader like slowly rise to his feet, rear back, and just unleash the hammer of God on this dude's forehead or on the back of his
Just
head.
full speed on them.
Right. Well, the problem then
Nice.
became is those little LCD monitors. Somebody
Oh.
missed. And I mean, dude, the way this thing exploded, like it was like one of those scenes from The Matrix when you see the glass just coming out and everybody's like, oh shit. And he's like, he's was like, God damn it, and just walked
Oh
out,
man.
So long story short, we were not allowed to beanbag people
No more throwing of the
anymore.
bean bags anymore.
Yeah. But
Did you feel when you left Fort Sill? Did you feel pretty comfortable going to taking the skills that you learned? Because Fort Sill, for those that aren't fire support men, you learn the basic call for fire and stuff like that. You also learn like the different kinds of rounds, but you also start. For at least for my class, we do a pretty good amount of land nav. Not a good amount. I mean, you do some, but more than
yeah,
most people
it's
would.
decent. Yeah.
So you got a couple land nav, a pretty long land nav actually.
Yeah.
Their land nav course is fucking huge, and you're like
Yeah.
going. Some of them are up. I remember we're climbing. It's not a mountain. It was like a big hill though, and it was like
Absolutely.
all boulders.
Yep.
And I like walked right by or right. I think I was looking down at the map and I was moving, and I walked. I think it was right next to this fucking huge rattlesnake that was all curled up. Didn't even see it.
Yeah.
One of the other guys is like, bro, I almost stepped on that rattlesnake. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, dude, I'm the worst. Every time I go hiking, anytime, I always see rattlesnakes. Like, I should just accept it.
Oh boy. Rattlesnake maggot.
But yeah, so you get basic land nav, comm, call for fire classes and stuff like that. So you
Right.
think those classes and stuff set you up and prepared you to go to the fire support man course in Coronado? And kind of what were you expecting when you went to that course?
Um, I feel like it gave you kind of like just enough to prep you for naval guns. I mean, really, like,
Hmm.
I'm not trying to reflect negatively on, the instructor cadre that we had there because I mean they were good. Especially Gunny McNeese taking a bunch of essentially teenagers and teaching them how to do calls for fire, like doing military shit, navigation, all that stuff. Like he did a good job for what he was asked to do, but um, I think it prepares you literally just enough to go to follow on training. And I think that's all it's supposed to do, really. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, I was proficient enough for Coronado, and the way kind of they had us on lockdown as well. And this isn't on Gunny McNeese either, but it was more so the Marine battery there because we're on an Army base, so it was just like they treated us all like children. I mean, not that we weren't complete children, I guess, but I mean, it was just you couldn't scratch your ass without, you know, the
Yeah.
battery staff knowing about it, and you were allowed to go out in town every so often, but it was everything was like, I mean, the in brief, they tell you all these horror stories about lieutenants getting murdered and shit like that, and they're like, don't screw around with the locals because they only want your benefits and this and that and the third, and it's like, holy shit, what the fuck? And Lawton, Oklahoma is not the nicest place in the world either. So it's just like it really wasn't a great time outside of training. Um, so I was kind of expecting, I guess, Coronado to be the same because I had never heard of Coronado. I didn't know anything about it, until really Gunny McNeese
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, you guys are going to enjoy Coronado," and I didn't know if he was being serious or not, but we got there and it was awesome. I mean, it's San Diego, so it's just like
Yeah.
you get there and the instructors, they're still, Marines, and it's still like some Marine Corps regulation and whatnot, but like
And you're
they're
still a
like,
boot and
right, but for the most part, they're like, all right, guys, big boy rules, just stay in San Diego County. And I'm like, okay, wherever that is, so they show us a map, and then it, like, counties out here in Ohio are big, but they are not San Diego County size. Like counties here are maybe like a couple cities. Like
yeah.
county in San Diego is massive. Like you could
Yeah.
drive for an hour and still not reach the end of San Diego County. So it was like seeing that, I was like, holy shit, all I got to do is stay within this area. Fuck. And it was just
That'll
like
be
party
easy.
city,
And there's literally
but
everything you could, not everything, but almost anything you could want to do is in San Diego County.
oh, heck yeah.
Like
Heck yeah.
you have mountains you can go into, you have the ocean you can go into. I mean, and everything in between that,
Yeah.
skydiving, shooting, freaking all that. Of course, you have to deal with California, but
Sure.
outside of some of the shenanigans that are out here, it's not too bad.
Right, right. But yeah, that was I really enjoyed Naval Gun School except for my first weekend because as soon as we got there, they told us that, and then me and a couple of the guys were like, all right, well, let's go play some basketball or whatever. So we did, and went up for a rebound, came down, tore two ligaments in my left ankle. So like I couldn't PT, I couldn't do shit other than classroom stuff. Like couldn't even do the land nav course. Like that part of it just sucked, but I was still okay to go out in town though. So
Did you did you have to have surgery or anything on the ankle?
no, fortunately I didn't. But I actually got cellulitis in my ankle, which
Fucking
was
nasty
oh dude,
body.
it was like that's the crazy thing is because they were looking at it and I was like, it's burning, like I can't sleep, it's burning so bad, my leg is hot. So they look at it and they're like, well, we don't know how this happened. You have no, you know, openings in your skin. There's no cuts. There's no sores. Nothing. We have no idea how you got cellulitis. I'm like, well, fuck, me neither. Because they had me in that robo boot thing. Um,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe it had something to do with that, but looking back, it's still kind of a mystery to me is how that happened. But yeah, they just had me on antibiotics and some Vicodin, and that was about that. So
How long were you laid up with that?
pretty much until about the last week, I think, of training. Like I could walk around on it during the last week, but they still had me on light duty, so they didn't want me doing like any of the stuff at San Clemente other than sitting in the box and doing the call for fire.
Was there any possibility that you could get like held back from the class?
Yeah, there was a little talk of that at the beginning, but I really tried to do my best to convince them that I could still go to the fleet, and I was able to, fortunately. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no, that's good. So, all right, you're coming towards the end. You're coming off an injury, and they're coming out with the names of the units.
yeah,
Like they're getting ready to tell people what units they're going to. Had the students, because I came through as an NCO, so I came through as a sergeant because I was a lap mover.
right.
At the Were the students all? Did you guys all know like what units you wanted to go to? Were there like rumors from like, because there was probably lap movers in your class as well as the
Hmm.
instructors going, oh, this unit's better. This is the place you want to
Yeah.
go.
Well,
So did you get any of that?
we had one lap mover from Third Anglico. Um, he was, I want to say he was like supply or something like that from Third. And then obviously he came over to um, do our training and be a 0861. And he was always talking about Third Anglico, about how badass it was and how they were always, doing some bomb ass training and chilling and just, getting money and all this. Like he was just like a super cool guy to us. Um, a couple of our instructors came from Anglico, um, one or two from the batteries. So we all knew that Anglico was where you wanted to go. Um,
Yeah.
or recon. There was a little bit of talk about recon, but they pretty much squashed it. They're like, yeah, none of you are going to get to go to recon, so forget that dream. But yeah, so
Yeah.
everybody kind of wanted to go to Anglico, and then if they couldn't go to Anglico, they wanted to stay on the West Coast, um, or go to like Okinawa or whatever, or Hawaii. But so there was a little bit of that, and they were kind of messing with us a little bit. They're like, oh, you guys are gonna go to 10th Marines, or you guys are gonna go to some shithole and some shithole place, and it's just like, what do you do? What's true? What's not? And then they finally kind of dropped the orders. And like I said, I was kind of bad about studying, so I was kind of at the bottom of the pack, so to speak, academically. And so I was like, man, I'm gonna get the shaft. I'm gonna go to like some battery, and my life is just gonna suck. And then, me and my roommate actually got selected to go to Fifth Anglico, and like when we saw it, we were like, holy shit, what the fuck? That's crazy, And nobody else in our class got to go to Anglico. Everybody else went to batteries. We're like, what the fuck? How did this happen? So we were like
These
super pumped.
motherfuckers.
Right, right. They were like, "How the fuck did you assholes get?" We're like, "I don't know." But no, it was, we were super pumped, to go to Fifth Anglico in Japan, and especially me because my Marine instructors from high school, they had both been to Okinawa, and they told me some fun stories about Okinawa. So I was pretty pumped to kind of walk in their footsteps, so to speak, and um, get to experience that place.
What place had you heard about that you were like, I got to get there for Oki?
Um,
Like, because there's all kinds of stories that come out of Oki, and
sure.
everybody's got their own bar and shit like that. So, what
Right.
was like the place that like you're like, I got to go to this spot as soon as I get there because I've heard so much about it.
They hadn't really told me about any like specific place in Okinawa, but they just kind of talked about Okinawa as a whole, like how beautiful it is, and there's beautiful women out there, and there's just all sorts of stuff to do and see. So I was just again, I was more so just excited to just walk in their footsteps, sort of thing. That was
Yeah.
that was really
Okay.
it for me, but. Yeah, I hadn't heard too terribly much about Fifth Anglico.
What was the what was the culture shock like landing in Okinawa? You know, because you're from Ohio,
Right,
right? You know what you
right.
said. So you're coming from a place that's got all four seasons and extremely cold
Yeah,
winters. I know because I'm from
yeah.
Indiana, and
Nice.
so you land in this place that is just heat and humidity. What was that
Yeah,
like? Oh fuck! And then not only heat and humidity, but almost everybody there speaks a different language than you. So
right. And I know it's kind of like it's almost like a duh sort of thing, but when you when you go to Okinawa, like being from the United States, like you forget how diverse the United States is just because you're so used to it, you know.
hmm
Um, so when you get to Okinawa, one of the first things that it like takes you a minute to like get a solid grasp on is like most people walking around are Japanese. And you're just like, what the fuck? It's like
like you're
Japanese people
surprised by
everywhere.
it.
Right, yeah, it's the weirdest thing. And like I talked to a bunch of different guys about that, and they're like, yeah, it was kind of weird. Like, you go there expecting that, but at the same time, you just kind of forget. You expect to see diversity, and there's not really. Um, so you kind of stick out like a sore thumb as an American. Um, so that was a
Yeah.
little shocking. But like some of their cultural oddities, such as like things that are taboo here aren't necessarily taboo there. Like so, like um, sexuality is kind of a taboo subject here, so to speak. I mean, it's more so not becoming taboo in popular culture, but they're they're really pretty open about sexual things. So, and I'll give you an example. Like, um, they have vending machines over there that have used women's panties, and you can get all sorts of panties in different conditions. And I'll leave that up to the imaginations because that was pretty
That's
yucky.
so
Yeah,
gross. That's so
yeah,
gross.
it's total yucky town there. But and they had certain obsessions with like certain like obviously anime like is their big thing over there. So they had
Yeah.
this place called American Village, and it's like just like what they think American culture is like versus what it really is. Like it's this total like cartoonized, like thing, and it's like the little things. Like for instance, they had these A&W restaurants, and I went and I ordered a root beer float, and she gave it to me, and it was ice cream, ice cubes, and root beer. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And she's like, oh, a root beer float. I'm like, why is there ice in it? And she's like, to keep it cold. And I'm like, that's
That's
what
what the
the
ice
ice
cream's for.
cream's for. You don't need ice. Like, why is there ice in my root beer float? So they remade it, and it was just like, what the fuck is going on?
Who
Um,
are you people?
right. But no, it was, and then like certain celebrities, like they got a huge obsession with them. Like so, um, racism, like that they're a little bit more open about that. So like there's certain bars and restaurants and places that Americans can't go. It's Japanese only, and plain as day, and a nice, nice little elegant sign that just says Japanese only.
Really?
And oh, for sure, absolutely,
Or
and
how many dudes are getting pissed about that? They're like, "That's bullshit,
oh yeah,
man."
this was like, oh, it's fucking horseshit, da, da, da. And I'm like, well, I mean, you guys kind of act like assholes, so like,
You guys, that's you too, man. You're on our team.
true story. But me and a couple of guys would go into like some of the places that were Japanese only, or some of the places we might not necessarily, our presence might not necessarily be welcomed, and everybody's like giving you the stink eye and shit like that. And all my white friends would always take me out because I just go and sing a Michael Jackson song on the karaoke thing, and everybody's our best friend all of a sudden. They're like, "Oh, Michael, we love Michael."
We love
Um,
him. You're the
uh,
end.
and then they also had like this weird obsession with Tommy Lee Jones of all people. He had his own
That's super
coffee
random.
line there, Boss Coffee, and it was just him doing his Tommy Lee Jones face and is like nothing special
These
about
are the
this coffee, you know.
these are the funny things you see when you travel overseas that like a lot
Yeah.
of Americans miss out on. It's just little stuff like that. I don't know. It's like really laughable.
Hmm.
Like when you go into a store and you see stuff, or you go into a store that sells stuff and they like act like it's legit and you can tell it's obviously
Right.
fake. Like
Oh
I don't know.
man,
I don't know.
that was
I
the
love shopping and
best.
going and
So
stuff like overseas. It's great.
yeah, so we had a couple of the guys that would, they always look fresh to death, and there was this one little Japanese store we used to go to where a lot of the stuff that the guy would get was counterfeit, and just pieces of shit. But he would get some stuff that was actually really good, and authentic, so you could talk him down a lot of the times. And one of my prized possessions that I have is my LaDainian Tomlinson 21 jersey, navy blue, and
Hmm.
it's a full-on like triple stitched game jersey. I mean, like the thing is awesome. I still have it, and it's still in great condition. And I remember seeing it. I was like, oh my God, look at that LT jersey. And, one of my buddies was like, what about it? I was it's legit. It's triple stitch. It's fucking awesome. So I was able to talk the guy down. I think I got it for like $150, which was pretty good at the time. Him
Nice.
being almost like at the height of his popularity, and, so there's stuff like that, you could get. And it was so funny, like walking around in his shop because you'd see like some of the J's that'd be on the shelf, and like Michael Jordan's hand would be like this weird, deformed, like pointed downward
Glove
thing.
hand.
It was just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
You
stuff's like a
know?
little off.
Yeah, it was.
I remember
It was good.
I went to a tailor in Hong Kong. I got a couple suits made when we were in Hong
Uh
Kong,
huh.
and I think it was him. One of them was telling us like you can get whatever brand label they had, and they would sew it into your suit. So you could be like, oh yeah, it's an Armani. Like check it out the tag. Like they're going to
That's
that level
awesome.
to they'll. But the thing is they're super nice suits. They're all handmade anyway. Like
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
really nice cloth and really good cuts. But
Hmm.
they make it cheap by doing something stupid like that though. I'm like,
Right.
dude, this is I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny though. But that's the shit like you'll see in Asia and stuff like that when you're traveling
For
overseas.
sure.
It's pretty.
For sure.
It's good stuff. All right. So what was it like checking into Fifth Anglico? Like this is your first duty station, first unit. You practice checking in 1,000 times, standing
Yeah.
in the squad bay and boot camp.
Yep.
This is the time. It was all for
Right.
this.
All
How
for
did
this
that?
moment.
Did you march in and come to attention and do everything properly?
So ours, ours was actually kind of a bust. It's a funny story because, um, you get on the plane to go to fly to Okinawa, and you got the connecting flight in San Francisco, and then from San Francisco you fly to Osaka, and then Osaka to Okinawa. I forget where in Okinawa. Um, but so they say, oh, just put on civilian attire. I'm like, okay, cool. So there was like a group of, I think, 10 of us that were all boots going to Okinawa for the first time. And all of us had on civvies except for this one fucking guy. He had on full pickle suit. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Why don't you change into civvies? He's like, well, I packed all my clothes in my checked baggage. I'm like, are you serious, dude? So he had to ride the whole flight in his pickle suit. So,
Dude, fuck that, man.
right, so
And how long is it to Okinawa?
it's
You
like
flew out of
16
Seattle.
hours.
Yeah, it's a long flight.
Yeah. So, we make it to the gate, and he's trying to see if he can grab one of his checked bags so he can change, but they are just not having any of it. So we get up to the plane and they're like, oh, we will upgrade you to first class. And he's like, oh, sweet. So he
And you
goes up
guys
to
are all like,
first
this
class.
motherfucker.
Right. So we're like, you ass. So we're pretty much sleeping on the flight. They're feeding this dude drinks in first fucking class, thanking him for his service and all this and that. He's like, oh
Obviously.
yeah.
It's
So
tough out there.
right. So we get off the bird in Osaka, and this dude is shit faced. I mean, 3 sheets to the wind. So I'm like, are
Nice.
you fucking serious, dude? And we all got our little check-in orders in that little leather bag, And
Yeah.
so we're basically carrying this dude on the flight, and they're like, oh no, he cannot board in states like this. So we're like, hey man, this guy's a fucking Marine. He's got to get on this fucking plane, or else like they're gonna fucking kill him. Like they will straight up kill him. Like, oh no, So they're like trying to help us get him on the airplane and shit, and we finally get him on. And it's just total shit show because of this guy. But so we get to RPAC, which is like the place where you check in, and we're all in civvies. Like there is no you're gonna come to attention and march in and salute and all this. There was none of that. It was just, all right, you're checked in. Here's your room. Go to sleep. You'll be briefed, in the next week what you're doing. So it's like, okay.
A
Well,
little
that was,
underwhelming.
yeah, that was a total letdown. And then from there, like they tell you again, the Marine Corps just loves its horror stories when checking in new guys. So they tell you all these horror stories about bad things that happen to people when, up to and
They're
including
gonna
death, you know.
they're gonna tape you to a mattress and throw you off.
Right? Like don't tie a poncho to your arms and legs and try and fly during the typhoons. And they're like, what the fuck? It's just this blast of
There's
negative information
there's a
at these new
reason it's in the
guys.
safety
Oh,
brief.
absolutely. That you would come to find that out. But you check in, and we were actually, for some reason, we ended up being in camis because I think most of the unit was out or something at a field op or some kind of business. Like nobody was there. First sergeant wasn't there. Like the unit was essentially in like disarray because everybody was doing other things. So,
Yeah.
some staff sergeant grabs us. Nice enough guy, from the admin section. So he's getting us all checked in his office, and he's trying to give us some like, hot tips and whatnot. And we're doing our thing, and we're sitting in his little office, me and my buddy Chow, and this gunnery sergeant walks in, Gunny Castro. Um,
Hmm.
Come to find out, he's like a really, really nice and good dude, really smart, 0861. And he's got like 2 other corporals with him. He's like, oh, these are the new guys, and he's like, hey, what's your name? And my dumbass, because like when I first started talking to the staff sergeant, I would stand up, come to parade rest, like, yes, staff sergeant, no staff sergeant, I staff sergeant. He's like, look, you don't have to do all that. Just sit down. I got too much to do for you to be doing all that. So I was like, okay, cool. So my dumbass assumed it would be the same way with this gunnery sergeant. So I'm like, oh, hey, Gunny,
Hey, what up, Gunny?
my name's PFC Brown. And he's like, he like stops for a minute, and like that 1 second of silence had let me know that I fucked up.
You're
And
like,
then
oh
these
shit, here we go.
2 corporals just fucking bulldogged me, you know, and then the gunny was like, okay, fucking good. You need to learn some fucking respect. We'll take your dumb ass in 2nd Brigade. I was like, okay. And then they talked to my buddy, and they leave. Well, no, I'm sorry. They talk to my buddy, and then they're like, all right, I hope you fucking boots are ready. We're deploying to Iraq in 6 months. And then they fucking walked out. And granted, this is what I joined the Marine Corps to do. I joined the Marine Corps to put foot to ass, for country. But like just hearing that all of a sudden, 6 months, we're going down range. It's just like,
Yeah.
fuck.
Then
Holy
you start
shit.
thinking about all those times you weren't paying attention in class. And shit.
Right?
You're like, fuck,
Yeah.
I fucked
Fuck,
up.
I don't know anything, And turn back to the staff sergeant, who was processing us in, and he kind of like looked at us and he like kind of raised his eyebrows. He's like, "Well, you fucked up," And just like went back to typing on his computer. I'm like, "Great,"
That's funny.
So yeah, that was our check-in experience.
So what was it like prepping for that first deployment, knowing it's coming so quickly? Were you like, oh shit, now I gotta like really pay attention
um,
and like figure this out, like figure out what the fuck I'm doing here?
So as it turned out, we ended up not going to Iraq right at 6 months. We had a full workup, which was cool. But at the pretty much the first order of business was like the Anglico basic course. Um, it wasn't too bad. I mean, we had a staff sergeant that came who, I mean, just the smallest guy I'd ever seen. I wish I could remember his name.
Hmm.
Walker, Staff Sergeant Walker, like the shortest human being I've ever seen who was not legally a midget. But
He probably appreciates that.
yeah, I mean, just hell of a guy,
He's
like
like,
great
thanks,
guy,
Dick.
right? But like this dude could run for days. It was ridiculous. And my ankle still wasn't completely healed, so I'm like trying to like limp along and run. He's like, "What the fuck is your problem?" Da 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 da. I'm like, "Look, I tore two ligaments in my ankle at the beginning of the Coronado course. It's still not fully healed." He's like, "All right, get your ass to physical therapy, go to medical,
That's
whatever,
rough coming to the
you know."
fleet with an injury.
Right. And, so it's like you kind of get this stigma that like everybody thinks you're a piece of shit, that you're faking something. But I was like, look, no, like it's a true injury. Like I'm still trying to get to my feet, sort of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but I was able to perform in pretty much everything else. And my ankle actually healed pretty quickly. Um, so I was able to get back in the game pretty fast, which was good. Um, but no, the workup was pretty intense. We had my team chief was actually Sergeant Morrison, country fed white guy from Iowa, state wrestling team sort of guy, and just, I mean, his presence was just like, even when he was sitting down, he was standing up over top of you, not like, he
Yeah.
wasn't like a mean cuss sort of guy, but he was just
I haven't heard anybody use that expression in a long time.
a mean cuss. Um,
Yeah.
he was just, his presence was a little intimidating,
Yeah.
very strong-willed, but very smart, very good guy, did a
Yeah.
lot for us as a team chief, but he expected a hell of a lot out of us at the same time. We were going to the simulator, getting reps in, and he was always PTing us, and like for the size of this guy, like he was two 230s maybe, I don't know, 5'8", something around there. So big boy, but like again, he could run for days. He wasn't real fast, but he could run, just
Yeah.
it was almost like running with Gunny Highway, you know what I mean? Like you think the run's over and then he just goes trotting by you and you're like, fuck, But he would have us running like 8 miles every day. Um, and you
And
get
that
used to
fucking
it.
humidity down
Oh
there,
my
man.
God, dude, it was horrible. Because it's
It's like
like,
running underwater, probably.
absolutely, because they even tell you at first, like when you in your first month or so you're there, you have to wear a white shirt instead of a green skivvy shirt while you PT, so that people know not to mess with you too bad because they've actually had a couple Marines die for that reason. They're just new joins and they got hazed too hard and they
They're not
just keel
acclimated
over.
yet.
Right? Yeah, they're not acclimated and they keel over. But
Yeah.
yeah, he definitely trained us well, and we got some good training. And we kind of got to see how good our training was when we went out to Fort Irwin, California, and trained with a Army Stryker Brigade. I can't remember which Stryker Brigade they were, but it was like their training versus our training. And don't get me wrong, obviously I'm a little biased because I'm a Marine, but like just the way those soldiers,
No
those
big deal.
nasty soldiers, right? Those nasty soldiers were just, oh boy, like
You know what it is? They didn't go to Parris Island. Fucking
that's it,
losers.
dude. That's it every time.
I'm just playing.
Um, but
Uh, so were you embedded with the strikers, or were you like adjacent, like training adjacent?
yeah, we essentially, well, we were more so kind of, I guess, training adjacent with them because I, I don't really feel like they knew how to fully employ us and like kind of what to do with us sort of thing. So they were just like, oh yeah, you guys do the air and artillery shit. We're like, yeah, so like we were kind of part of their ops, but kind of not really, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so they would do an op and we'd be kind of going along with them in our Humvees, but we really didn't have too much direction during
So
actions
you weren't
on
like
an
riding in the
objective.
strikers and like
No,
working.
no, yeah,
Okay.
we stayed in our own Humvees. We would do like dismounted patrols and stuff with them, but it was just you kind of felt um like the third wheel sort of thing with them. But there was a couple times with the scenarios that they had built that we actually saved their ass a couple times during training, of course. But
Yeah.
it was just again, it was different. They were a little bit more undisciplined than we were, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah. I went to in I don't remember the year. It was 16. Maybe I think it was the beginning of 16. Let me think real quick. So we had 13, 14. Yeah, it was the beginning of 15. 2015 went out with the 501st.
Hmm.
My SALT, my supporting arms liaison team, got attached to a unit from the 501st to do JRTC and Fort Polk. Have you ever been out to Fort Polk?
No, thank God.
Dude, it's in the middle. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's not like 29 Palms, middle of nowhere. It's like middle of nowhere. Plus, you can't see anything because it's flat and it's all pine trees. So it's just like
Ugh.
all you see is like walls of pine trees all around you. And yeah, it's kind of weird. It's two different mentalities, it's two different groups of people that are. It's like having two kids in the same room that were raised by two different parents.
Yep,
You know what I'm saying? Like
exactly.
some think one thing's okay and some stuff's bad, and so it's a weird mentality. And so yeah, I just felt ridiculous because they're all walking around and they're like low straps and stuff, and I'm like, this is
Yes.
fucking stupid, man. And overall, they were all right. We worked with them. We had them in a unit of a British company. Maybe it was a
Yeah.
battalion. I think it was just a company. I think we had a British company attached to them, and that's who I was attached to, was one of the Brit companies. And it makes you a better, like a more well-rounded like military person, because
Oh, for sure.
now when someone else brings up like, hey, we have to integrate Army into this planning, like you know it a little bit. You can speak it a little bit
Right.
better. You can understand the capabilities a little bit more. And excuse me. And what you're saying, like they don't really understand how to use you. Like when we showed up, it was like blowing their minds on some of the stuff that we were bringing to the table. Because I had like my comm chief. One day I was like, hey, we're not doing anything. We got some white space time because the exercise hadn't fully kicked off yet. I was like,
Right.
and we had made a plan to shoot a unamplified HF shot off a field expedient antenna from Louisiana back to Camp Pendleton. So my dudes are out there
Yeah.
setting that up, and these Army dudes are all like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And I'm like, oh yeah, we were telling them like, yeah, we're going to shoot this radio shot back to California. And they're like,
Right.
what the fuck? Like, you guys are building your own antenna? And they hadn't seen anything like that, And
Yeah.
he had actually, he knew some of this stuff already, but he had just come from the Mountain Comm. And they do a ton of that at Mountain Comm. So what was cool is I was like, all right, hey, I talked to like one of their staff NCOs or something. I was like, hey, tomorrow, bring whoever you want over, and my guys will teach your guys a class on
Right.
field expedient antennas and doing this. Dude, like, probably at least 50 people showed up.
Nice.
They all showed up. There's this massive crowd. We're like, oh crap. And it was cool. That was cool that they
Sure.
were wanting to learn it too. So I thought that was awesome. But what you're saying, like, yeah, you can like kind of blow their minds if you show them some of your full capabilities, because, when you don't really understand like a unit's full capabilities and you start talking about some of the stuff that they can do or showing you like actually doing it. Yeah, I mean, I can see how it could blow people's minds. Like I've worked some with like some CCTs and stuff like that, but I've never sat down and like talked to them like in depth about some of the stuff they do.
Right.
But I know that would completely blow my mind, like a lot of the stuff they do. And that's how you learn it, by sitting down and talking to them. So
Absolutely.
coming from that, like What was after doing this big exercise or this training op with the Army? Did you guys come back and finish up your training? I mean, you were out of Okinawa, so it's a big deal to fly you from
Right.
back
Absolutely.
and forth. So or did you guys do more training here in the States before you went back?
No, so that was kind of the culmination of our training, and you know, we obviously got the okay to deploy, and it was kind of cool because, as a Lance Corporal, like you're looking at, you know, people are constantly feeding you all this information. You're like, okay, whatever, 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 and then you finally get to culminate all
The
of it and use
underground,
all
man.
of it. Right, yeah, and like
Lance Corporal Underground is full cycle when it's a
right.
deployment coming up.
Yeah, and everybody's like just kind of talking about, oh, this is useless, that's useless, whatever, and then you get to do the Fort Irwin thing and use everything that you've been learning. You're like, holy shit, I've been actually learning some good stuff. Um, so, that was really cool getting to see that. And then after that, we actually we drove from Fort Irwin back to Vegas, and are like, okay, take your leave block from here, because that way, you guys don't have to buy these expensive plane tickets from Okinawa. So they really hooked us up in that
Yeah, that's
fashion.
cool.
So we all went home, had our leave blocks. Excuse me.
That's like saving you $1,000 right
Oh my
there,
God, smooth.
minimum.
Yeah, it was great. So we have our leave blocks and we come back, and we're gonna fly out of Las Vegas back to San Francisco. From San Francisco, make the trip home to Okinawa. So I scheduled my flight to get in the day before my flight out of Las Vegas. And woke up on time, got to Las Vegas airport ahead of time, rip roaring to go. So I actually, like I said, I was early, and one of my buddies who was at the terminal with me, and I was like, hey, dude, I'm pretty tired. I'm going to lay down and go to sleep here by the window. Wake me up when it's time to board. And he's like, all right, cool, man. He forgot. I missed the fucking flight.
Oh
I
my
was
god.
sleeping like a damn rock, dude. So like I go up to the gate, I'm like freaking out. Again, Lance Corporal Brown has completely missed the flight. And I'm like, oh my God, I missed the flight. What's gonna happen? And they're like, okay, well, calm down. Who are you? Oh, I'm like, I'm Lance Corporal Brown. They're like, what? They're like,
Fuck is a
I'm
Lance Corporal?
right. I'm like, oh, I'm Quentin Brown. They're like, oh, you're Mr. Brown? We've been calling you, for the past 30 freaking minutes trying to get you on the flight off the PA. How did you not hear? I'm like, I can sleep through 50 cal fire. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, we'll get you a flight to, San Francisco or whatever. And then one of my corporals walks up. He was kind of a shitbag corporal. He walks up and is like, oh shit, I missed my flight too, man. So I'm like, oh sweet, a corporal here. Like, I don't have any responsibility anymore. I can just
You're like,
follow his
now I'm
lead.
not the senior man. Yeah.
Right? So, and again, I'm completely forgetting the fact that he's kind of a shitbag. So, he's like, okay, well, we'll board this flight to freaking San Fran. So we get there and we just miss the last flight leaving out of San Francisco to go back to Osaka. So,
Oh fuck.
yeah, so our gunny gives us a number to ahead of time to call if anything goes wrong. So we're calling this number. Well, apparently Gunny had given us the wrong number. He gave us his, I don't know, it was like his voicemail number. So we called it, and he never checks it. So we call it, call it, call it, call it, not answering. So we leave like 10 fucking messages. So then, we get to, San Fran, and they're like, hey, we'll put you up at a hotel since you missed your flight. I'm like, okay, cool, great. So the next morning, we get a call from, who the fuck called us? It was either the mass sergeant, who was the acting sergeant major of the unit, or our first sergeant had called us, one of the two. And he is just letting my corporal fucking have it. Like, I can hear him through the phone 2 people away. Like we're standing in a line, and I'm like 2 people away from him, and I can just hear him just like lighting his ass up, lifing him out, you know. So he's like, put Brown on the fucking phone, you know. So I pick up the phone.
Oh, my turn.
And, right, you know, and now it's the Sergeant Major. So the Sergeant Major's cussing me out. I'm like, aye, Sergeant Major. No, Sergeant. Yes, Sergeant Major. He's like, what the fuck, you dumbass? You ain't called. Like, we did call, Sergeant Major. We left Gunny Studley several messages. Da da da. It's like,
Oh, threw him under the bus.
Well, I was like, I didn't know what else to say. You know, he's
Yeah,
like,
I know.
bull fucking shit. You ain't leave nobody no fucking goddamn message. You know, I'm like, I Sergeant Major. You know. So then later on, Gunny Studley calls us, and he's like, okay, so you guys aren't completely off the hook, but I did get the messages. It's on my other machine that I never checked. My bad. I gave you the wrong number. You're like, okay, well, that's a fire slightly put out, I guess, you know. And
Yeah.
he's like, get your fucking asses back here as soon as you can. We're like, we're on the next flight to, you know, Osaka.
Get to Japan.
So,
All right, whatever.
so you know, I'm talking with my corporal the whole time. I'm like, dude, you know, what happened to you? What, you know, what's the deal? He's like, oh, you know, I set like 3 alarms, but none of them went off. I was staying at Circus. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, so we get back. We immediately go into the Sergeant Major's office. He's cussing us out. You know, before he even hears a word we have to say, he just let us have it. And he's this like 6'7" black dude, you know, it's just like this booming fucking voice, and just like, you motherfuckers, da da da. I'm like, oh shit, you know, so I'm fucking terrified of this guy, you know, and he's like, all right, what the fuck you got to say for yourself, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, here's the deal, and I told him my story about, you know, how I asked my buddy to wake me up. He's like, what's his fucking name? And I'm like, what? I don't want him to get in trouble.
Like snitches get
You
stitches.
know,
I can't tell you.
he's like, fuck that. He's like, you better tell me his goddamn name. I'm gonna fucking NJP your stupid ass. You know, I'm like, I'll take the NJP, Sergeant Major. You know, he's like, get the fuck out of my office. Go wait in the hallway. So he pulls, you know, my corporal into his office, and he's cussing him out, and he's asking him like who the fuck he told me to wake up, or told I asked to wake me up, you know, da 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 da. Long story short, he calls him back in his office. He's like, all right, I can respect that you didn't want to tell on nobody. You ain't no snitch. I feel that. But you're still getting charged with missing a movement. However, you know, he's like, since you guys did what you were supposed to do, and Gunny Studley kind of screwed the pooch, I'm gonna just give you a page 11. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's cool.
What is that? You know, and he explains it. And I'm like, oh, sweet, appreciate that, Sergeant Major. You know, and the incident was over with. But yeah, so that was pretty much the extent of our training. And then we just had a little bit of downtime before we deployed.
Did you know where you were going for your deployment? Did you already know, or
kind of, sort of? We knew that we were going to Iraq, but there was a lot of rumors of us potentially partway through going to Afghanistan, because Afghanistan was really starting to kick off during that time. It was 0809. So things were kind of wrapping up in Afghanistan, and they were like, oh, well, you know, maybe I'm sorry, things were wrapping up in Iraq. So like, you know, maybe we'll go to Afghanistan partway through the deployment. I'm like, oh, yay, sweet. We're going to fucking do 2 different places in one deployment. Yeah, bullshit. So, you know, we went to Iraq, and we pretty much stayed there the whole fucking time. You know, we flew into Kuwait first. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, we flew into Kuwait first, and then went to Iraq, and went to Al-Qaim, Iraq, New Al-Qaim. But, you know, our units were kind of spread all over the place.
yeah?
You know, but so that was pretty much it. I mean, as a lance corporal who got promoted to a corporal in Iraq, I knew generally that I was going to Iraq, but short of that, I didn't fucking know anything else.
So, telling your family goodbye, you're like, hey, I'm heading over. You know, here we go. This is what I signed up
Yep.
for. what was it like for that first deployment? What was going through your head?
Um, I was excited. I was thinking, Iraq will, I'll probably get some, but I was more so excited to go to Afghanistan. And, little did I know that the Marine Corps tells you a lot of things, but most of those things don't fucking happen. Um,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I was excited. Obviously, a little nervous. I didn't know what it was going to be like. You see the war movies and, dudes getting off the helo and it's fucking game time and, they're getting shot at and shit. It was not fucking like that at all. You, you get off the helo at, no, I'm sorry. We got off the C-130 at Al Assad and, it's just like more fucking in
Camp
briefs.
Cupcake.
Right. And it's like more fucking briefs. God damn it.
Yeah, how many sitting on those wooden benches, watching
It's
PowerPoints
worse.
about IED threats and
It was
freaking weapons handling. Make sure to clear your weapon before you go to the chow hall.
right,
Dog.
right, yeah, and that was the weird kind of transition period where we were still wearing flight suits, while out and about because they're fire retardant capabilities, but guys were
Yeah, this is like that in between that
yeah,
and frogs.
yeah,
Regular came
yeah,
with
people
frogs.
were just starting to kind of get frog gear, and dude, I remember like we would go out and be doing convoys. Like it seemed like all the deployment was just doing fucking convoys all the goddamn time. And
Yeah.
I remember this one time especially, and kind of have Sergeant Morrison to thank for this, because he was like, look, I don't want anything negative, coming back on us. So if some shit goes down, um, say you're with first tanks. So we're like, yeah, all right, good to go. So
Fuck them.
right, we would we'd go out. We were actually coming back from some convoy, and we were like, all right, we're gonna stop at Al Assad. So we stop at Al Assad, and we still got our flight suits on, flat Kevlar flight suit, fucking rifle, all that shit. So we, put on our booty covers, and we're walking through Camp Cupcake to the main chow hall, and some fucking dude snatches
Is
us
the
up.
main chow hall the one down by the theater and the track or whatever?
I think so.
You know what I'm talking about? On that road that has actual sidewalks and like street lights and shit?
Yes, it had like the concrete slabs and all
okay.
that shit. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the one I went to.
yeah. So we were going to that one, and some like first sergeant was like, "Hey, fucking Marine," and I made it a point. At this point, I was so tired of hearing a Marine, so like I made it a point. If someone would yell that at me, I'd just keep fucking walking. Cause like there's almost never a time where you're the singular Marine walking around. So I was like, oh, I thought you fucking talking to somebody else. I didn't fucking know you talking to me, man. My bad, So like this first sergeant like runs across a football field size area just to get to us. Like, hey Marine, I'm talking to you fucking assholes. I'm like, oh, what? Sorry, first sergeant, what's the deal? And he's like, why the fuck are you wearing flight suits? Da, da, da. You should be in fucking camis, blah, 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 blah. They're like, hey, dude, we ain't got fucking frog gear or none of that fucking cami bullshit. We just got fucking flight suits. That's all we got. You motherfuckers must be from the
Yeah.
wing. Da, da, da. No, we're not from the wing. Who the fuck are you with? And we gotta just like look at each other and we're like, all four of us in unison, first tanks, and he's like, he's like, good to fucking go, and he like, what's your fucking name? And he literally whips out this little steno pad and writes down all our fucking names, and
Dude,
writes
it's like,
first
get a
tanks.
life,
I'm like,
man.
dog, I was like, is your life really that sad? Is your life really
Dude,
that void of things to do that you have to
I
write down our names and go talk to someone at first tanks? Really?
I had a first sergeant one time. I came back. It was right after my 2013 deployment. I had been home for like 2 days,
Mhm.
literally. And this is at I was with 10th Marines at the time.
Yeah.
And at Camp Lejeune. So we went down to go to the PX in French Creek, and
Right.
it was a Friday. But you're supposed to be wearing chucks. All right.
Yeah.
I got promoted in Afghanistan, and when I got home, I had to take all my uniforms in and get them tailored, so I didn't have any chucks.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, let's run down to the PX, blah, 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 blah. Pull into the parking lot, get out of the car. I'm walking towards the PX. I'm like, hey, devil dog. And I'm like, oh, my
Damn
God.
it.
I turn around, and there's this. He's like, come here. And he's in his car. He's sitting in his car. He doesn't get out or anything. He's like, come here. I kind of jog over because I see that, he's got a little bit of rank. I can see it from a distance. I'm like a half
got a bunch of black.
I'm like, hey, I was like, oh, hey, what's going on, First Sergeant? He's like, Staff Sergeant. He's like, I just got out of the PX and I just kicked everybody out of there that was in camis because it's Friday. He's like, where are your chucks? And I'm like, First Sergeant, I was like, I know we're supposed to be in chucks. I was like, I just got home from Afghanistan and I got promoted. And I was like, all my stuff's at the tailor getting chevrons put on it. And he's like, Staff Sergeant. He's like, oh, come on, man. He's like, where are your chucks at? You can't be walking around here without chucks on. And I'm like, dude, what do you want me to do, man? I've been home for 2 days. My uniforms aren't even ready. Right. And I'm like, that's what you're so worried about, man. Like, what's going on in your unit? Right. Where you have so much free time, you can come down to the PX and be like, you, get out. Like, get the fuck out of here. Go do some real work.
Right. Absolutely.
Some people are like that. There's a time and place for discipline and like all the, hard-nosed stuff, but some of the bullshit like that, it's just like, dude, get a life, man. Go fucking. Hey, that's the guy that's out in town at Walmart like, hey, where's your belt?
Oh my God.
Like, get back on base.
So I got a funny story about that. Like one of the moments, like I think you have kind of moments in your life after or during the Marine Corps, you realize you're institutionalized. And during the birth of my daughter, my daughter was born after I got out of the Marine Corps in 2016. And my brother-in-law
cries at birth, like, scream louder.
Right. My brother-in-law, who I'm pretty close with, he came up to visit, and my wife and daughter had fallen asleep. So he's like, hey man, you want to go down to the cafeteria and get something to eat? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I was wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. I'm like, hey, I just got to change over real quick. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, I gotta put on some like civilian clothes. And he's like, well, what the fuck do you call that? And I was like, no, dude, this is not. I can't walk around like this. Bro. Right.
This is rainbow PT gear.
I can't walk out in rainbow gear, And he was like, what are you talking about? So I had to break it down for him. And I'm like, dude, imagine if a, senior or mid-level manager at your company caught you walking around, in Walmart wearing just some nonsense. Clothing.
You say caught you walking around like they're looking for their employees. Like, right. Oh, I found this motherfucker. Look at
I was like, and imagine like you're walking around like this, minding your own business, and he starts screaming at you at the top of your lungs, or at the top of his lungs, in the middle of Walmart, and your only option is to stand at parade rest, and I had to demonstrate what parade rest was. I was like, your only option is to stand at parade rest and say, yes, sir, no, sir. I was like, imagine that. And he's like, that's insane. I was like, yes, that's what's geared into my brain. I will just feel more comfortable if I'm in like jeans and a t-shirt or something like that. Just let me do me. I let you do you,
Yeah, look, bro, I'm a little fucked up in the head. Right? Let me go put on a belt real quick.
Yeah, so it's just like his mind was obviously completely blown by that.
Yeah, regular people, man, or civilian. I always say regular people.
Right.
Civilians, like, it's hard to imagine some of the stuff that we do in the military. That's, I don't know, like you're saying, you become institutionalized.
Yeah,
from the very beginning too.
Normal at all.
I was so fucked up when I got out of boot camp. I remember coming home. I'd been home, I don't know, a couple days, like 3 days, maybe 3 days. And 9/11 had come out in the movie theaters. So I was like, I want to go see this movie.
Right.
That one about Nicolas Cage and stuff.
Yeah.
Or with Nicolas Cage and stuff. And I'm like, I want to go see this movie. So me and one of my buddies goes and sees it. And I remember sitting in the movie theater and I'm watching the movie. And then all of a sudden my neck starts itching.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, fuck, my neck itches. I'm like, oh, damn it. And I'm just watching the movie, and I'm like, God damn it, this fucking neck itching is killing me. I'm 3 days out of boot camp, man. My mind is still so fucked up.
Right.
And I'm sitting there and literally for 10 minutes, like, annoyed by this neck itching that I couldn't really focus. And then I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And I scratched my neck. I'm like, I was sitting here like, man, I'm fucked up in the head. I realized I was tucking my shirt into my like gym shorts at home when I'm walking around.
Right.
My cousin came over. She's like, what are you doing? Why is your shirt tucked in? I'm like, I don't know. I'm so fucked up.
Dude, I realized I was messed up after boot camp because we stopped in like, where the fuck did we stop? It was somewhere in like Georgia, maybe something like that. But like no Marine presence anywhere near there, and stop at a gas station. I had to piss. I'm in civilian attire now, and I walk up to the lady at the desk, and I'm like, "Excuse me, ma'am, do you have a head?" And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "A head? Do you have a head?"
Just gets on my shoulders,
And
asshole.
and she's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, and I'm getting pissed at this point. Like Marine rage is full on setting in. I'm like, "Do you have a head?" I'm like, I kind of
She's like, this lunatic.
right. So I kind of
You're
like yelling at her, and my dad walks in, and he's like, he means a bathroom. Do you have a restroom? He's a Marine. That's what they say. Head is a restroom. Just, do you have one?
Those first couple days out of boot camp, man, you're fucked up.
Oh yeah, it's gnarly. And she's like, "Oh, why didn't you just say that?" And I was like, "I fucking did."
You find yourself standing at parade rest in random places. You're like, what am I doing? What the hell is wrong with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Man.
Yep.
Anyway, so Iraq, back to Iraq. How was that for you? You were a junior guy on your team, right? You were.
Yeah.
How rank were you when you went to Iraq?
Kind of, sort of. So I started out as a lance corporal, and we actually got another kind of last minute guy. And I ended up getting promoted to corporal, kind of like 2 or 3 months in. Me and a good buddy of mine, Adam Plord, we ended up getting promoted to corporal. He was in the FICT that we were supporting, and I was in the SALT, so FICT 7 and SALT 7. So we got promoted on the same day. It was like literally right before a convoy. And the captain, who was an F-18 pilot, he was like, "Quentin Brown, front and center." And I was like, what the fuck? Like I had my saw on me, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I like walk over, and he's like, "To all who shall see these prison screens," and promoted me. I was like, holy shit, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So I had like one guy under me, that I was responsible for pretty much teaching everything I had learned pre-deployment to him. So that was another really great thing that Sergeant Morrison kind of really forced. He was like, "Hey, he had better know your fucking job, you know, um, by halfway through this deployment at least. So he's really, really pretty strict about that, which was really good for me. Gave me kind of the teaching bug, and really helped me to understand my job a hell of a lot better because I was able to teach it. Um, but yeah, Iraq was kind of a different beast, man, because like I said, we did a lot of convoys, just
Who
due
were you
to,
attached to?
we were attached to one of the MIT teams out there. I can't remember the name. I think it was like a 33rd something.
Was it
Um,
a police? Was it a police or army training team?
it was Army. Yeah, it was Army
Okay.
because we had one of the generals out there with us. Um, and we just supported them, which it was kind of just one of those things, man. It was almost like Groundhog Day again, but I remember like getting on the in briefs and talking about the IED threats and the tactics that the shitheads there would use. And like one of the first ops we conducted, we actually had to go to one of the IP stations, Iraqi police stations,
Mm-hmm.
because there was supposed to be some huge attack. Like they were hearing on the wire that there was going to be this massive attack. And I forgot pretty much everything I had learned culturally wise, you know, and it was like pretty much high noon, so we got like all these vehicles staged at intersections and shit, just waiting for these V-bids and this complex ambush to happen, and I was in the upgun, I was on the 240, and just like I said, just waiting for contact, and they amped this damn moment up so much. They're like, be on the fucking lookout. Just, some shit's gonna fucking go down today. You're gonna fucking get some today. You better be on your fucking A game. So
Be ready.
I'm like, right, so I'm like on the
I see
fucking
Black Hawk
upgun,
down. Shit's
like
about to go down.
looking around, and noon hits, and the call to prayer sounds.
Mm.
I shit my fucking pants because I'm like, oh my God, this is it. They are coordinating their attack. We're about to fucking get some. So my
Yeah.
driver, Corporal
Did they just
Lucena,
say jihad?
good fucking dude. Right. So he he knows I'm kind of up there like nervous and shit. So he's like, oh fuck man, it just came over the hook. They're fucking inbound. We're about to fucking get some. So I'm like, okay, so I'm like looking around and shit. And I'm like, oh man, it's gonna
That's
fucking go
hilarious.
down. It's gonna go down. It's like 5 minutes go by. I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen? 10 minutes go by. I'm starting to like relax a little bit. And he's like, hey man, it's fucking happening right now. They're coming down the road. I'm like, okay, and I'm like looking, and no, but there's not a soul. Like, I swear to God, I saw a tumbleweed roll across the fucking road. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? He's like, dude, I'm fucking with you. Nothing's happening. What the fuck is wrong with you? That's the afternoon call to prayer. I'm like,
There we go. Yeah.
okay. Well, joke's on you, buddy, because I wasn't nervous at all. Fuck you, And,
I was testing you to see if you were
right, right. So, and that was pretty much Iraq, man. And it was pretty boring up until, I don't know, maybe it was like midway through the deployment. I think SEAL Team 2 hopped across the Syrian border and grabbed HVT 2, and
who's
Syria was
HVT
like,
two.
uh, I don't know who it was, but HVT, high value target, like on the playing cards. Um,
Yeah. So he was just, oh, okay. So it's a big
yeah,
deal then.
yeah, the real big deal. So they hopped across the border and grabbed this fucking asshole. And so Syria was like not about that life at all. So they were like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, well, we're gonna release 1,000 war prisoners with the promise that they're gonna go to fucking Iraq. So then we had to go fucking round up all these assholes, and it was just like the Iraqi army was super fucking lazy, and they conducted the ops, but they only wanted to grab like one dude a day. So it
Yeah.
was so funny because like we'd grab the one guy, pretty much without a fight, and they'd go, we were like, hey, we got two more, convoys or hits essentially that we're going to do today. Are we going to RTB, or are we just going to go do these hits? And the commander would come back and it's like, inshallah, which pretty much meant fucking no, and like that kind of blew my mind because I was like, why can't you just fucking say no? Like, we're going to return to
You know
base.
you don't.
Just
It's
fucking
like your
say
parents are
no.
saying maybe.
Right,
Maybe.
right, yeah, it's
Maybe
just like,
means
just,
no, Bob, you
just
fucking
fucking
liar.
say no, But it was kind of funny, just doing that stuff with them, and we kind of built a halfway decent rapport with them, to the point that we actually invited them to our Marine Corps birthday celebration,
No,
um,
that's cool.
which was, well, it started off cool because, they were like, oh, what's this Marine Corps celebration about? We had to basically teach them how the Marine Corps is essentially a cult, and we follow,
We're all brainwashed.
right? We
Well,
we
you're not gonna
follow,
find out till you fucking tuck your goddamn shirt in.
right? We follow Saint Chesty Polar, and so we're telling them about all these things, and we we make this huge spread, and I was kind of one of the de facto chefs of the camp, so I would make a bunch of steaks and all sorts of stuff. And there was a pretty significant pork spread that we had. We had
Uh,
like, sausage and bacon and all this stuff. And I I was kind of partly in charge of making sure everything was separated out for the IAs, the Iraqi army soldiers that were with us. So we had it on this
Hmm.
separate table that was clearly marked pork, you know, and somehow like the sausage kept getting moved from the pork table to the table that they could eat from.
The
And
halal
I kept
food.
moving it back. I was like, oh, no big deal. And I would just move it back. Well, one of the times I came through to check the sausage tin, and it was just like one of those, aluminum foil, like, rigid things.
Yeah.
It was on their table and it was empty. I mean, like fucking crumbs. And I'm like, oh my God, I think they all took the sausage. So I kind of run out and I'm like kind of looking at a bunch of the IA's plates and they all have sausage on them. And I'm like, oh
Did you stop them
no.
from eating it?
Well, no.
No. That's so fucked up.
I feel horrible because it's like, I went to my boss who was Captain Dalton, real good guy, and I'm like, hey sir, um, all the Iraqi army soldiers have sausage on their plates. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? I was like, somebody kept moving the tin back over to their side of the table, and they all took it. So he's like looking
Yeah.
around, and it was like that moment in the horror movie where the person realizes they're fucked. So he's like looking
Oh
around
yeah,
and
because
look, and
he's the
he's
one
like,
that'll get fucked for
and
that.
he's like, oh no, and he's like, wait, 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 and he's like, what the fuck, and he was like, well, do they know it's pork? I was like, well, I
Not
mean,
yet.
I don't think so. Like, I don't know if they've ever eaten pork and they know what it tastes like. He's like, okay,
If they know what it
uh,
tastes like, they're liars.
right. So he's like, well, just don't fucking say anything. So I'm like, okay, So like, all these guys are eating it and they're like, oh, what is this? This is really good. I was like, oh,
This is the best food I've ever had in my
it's
life.
beef that I flavored with this stuff back from America that makes it taste different. You've never had it before and you'll never have it again, but it's yeah,
Secret. Family secret.
yeah, right, And they're like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
family
okay,
recipe.
like fucking. I mean, dude, all these guys ate pork, and I felt so bad, and it's like, well,
That
fuck it, I
sucks. I
guess.
almost gave a guy pork. I didn't realize it. We were making we we had a Hesco, the Hesco mesh. You have
Yep, that wire, yeah,
the wire. So for people that don't know, the Hesco barrier is like they come in different sizes, but it's like a wire mesh and it makes a cube basically, except for the top, and then they fill it. It's got a burlap sack around. Basically, it's you don't have to fill up 1,000 sandbags. It can stack this big
right,
ass 5 foot tall thing up and just fill it full of dirt that way, and becomes a natural barrier, whatever. Anyway, we would take the Hesco grate off of it and make a grill with it, and
yes,
we that was our grill, and then we
marine
would use
ingenuity.
like some really rough charcoal that the Afghans would get us. It was like the shit you'd get from like if you live in California or
Yeah,
by the border where you can get like the Mexican stuff. It's like chunks of wood. Um, anyway, we were out there grilling grilled cheese sandwiches on this little, ghetto grill that we had going on. And I'm like, hey man, you want one of these? Because we had some meat, and I thought we had turkey. And he was kind of looking at it, and he's like, and I'm like, oh, it's turkey. And he's like, nah, I'm okay, but thank you. They're like the Afghan, and he walked off, and my buddy's like, dude, that shit's ham. And I'm like, oh, well, why didn't you fucking say something? I was like, I was about
right,
to give him one.
right.
But yeah, you got to be careful, man. It's shit like that that'll get you fucking killed too. Like a little blue on
Fuck
green
yeah,
incident or green on
yeah,
blue incident's gonna happen.
absolutely.
So
Um,
after when you're coming at to the end of your Iraq deployment, did you feel like so this is your first deployment?
yeah.
How did you feel? Were you like, this is what I wanted to do? Like, I'm glad I joined still, or were you kind of
Um,
disillusioned maybe, or how did you
it
feel after the
was.
deployment?
Well, we were kind of winding down there, and then we actually got sent back to Al Assad to finish our deployment. I think it was maybe like two or so months that we ended up going back to Al Assad for, and during that time, we actually, Fifth Anglico had a fatality. Captain Warren Frank, hell of an officer. I mean, just a good fucking guy, and trained his guys real well. And the kind of messed up part about it is that we heard that their unit took a casualty, and one of my really good friends was in the in their FICT, and like I was freaking out because I thought it was my buddy that was hurt, and
What was IED strike or?
no, it was blue on green, but well,
Oh
it
fuck, man!
was
Now I feel like an asshole.
no, well, it wasn't quite. He was more so an infiltrator more than anything,
Yeah.
and he just posed as a Iraqi army soldier, and they were having some sort of meeting, and he turned his weapon on him and shot him, and the bullet went in underneath his kind of on the side underneath his armpit, killed him instantly. But that was a pretty
Damn,
hard
man, that sucks.
hard blow, because especially because it was just like really not much happened during the whole deployment for the whole unit as far as kinetic activity, and then it's like you still take a casualty, and it's like, fuck me, man. Like,
Yeah,
we were right at the
yeah.
end, like everything was supposed to be good, what the fuck? And it really sucked. It really sucked.
Was it a green on blue guy with the dude that did the green on blue or whatever they called it in Iraq?
Mhm.
Was he an Iraqi soldier that you guys had been working with?
Um,
Was he like a known guy
I,
around the unit kind
I,
of deal, or
I,
was it
I
someone that was just a fringe guy?
I don't know, because it was in a completely different area than where we were. So I don't know all the details with it, but
Mm,
I know somehow they determined he was an infiltrator. I don't know if he had been there for a while or if it would just been a couple weeks or whatever, but
okay.
some guy like apparently it was Captain Frank was killed, and like some other army guys were killed, but only the Marines in our FICT returned fire. So even in tragedy, like a little point of pride there. But like I said, it was a really messed up
That's rough, man.
time. That all of us really felt that loss, because he was a really good dude. And it's just like that was kind of my first exposure to death in that way, and nobody
It,
tells you how to deal with it,
mhm.
appropriately, so to speak. And it was just kind of one of those things that you have the memorial, and you don't really talk about it, and it's just like, okay, carry on with the plan of the day, fucking drive on with the mission, sort of thing.
Yeah, there's still work
Um,
to do.
right,
It's
yeah,
rough.
you never really fully address it.
And it brings everything into perspective. You're like, fuck, man, this is
Absolutely,
real. Like the shit we're
absolutely,
doing is real. Like, because
yeah,
when
and
you don't
then
know anyone that's been killed, it's like, like, yeah, this is dangerous. Like you say, it's dangerous, but you don't
right,
really kind of fully understand like the impact. Especially when you lose someone that you personally know, like,
right,
because let's say your unit loses somebody, you may or may not know that guy. Maybe you know his face or whatever. But if you like directly know somebody that was killed, I
absolutely,
mean, it's completely different, and you're like, holy fuck, man,
right.
like, okay,
It
and yeah,
and it kind of puts some other things in perspective. Like, I remember there was this one convoy we were doing. Well, it was an op we were doing. We were looking for some thieves. They were stealing like cars or something like that, and we were looking for these dudes, and somehow we got in a brownout, and we lagged behind the vehicles ahead of us. So all we saw was headlights to the right, and my driver, um, who was our comm guy at the time, Rios. I remember the comm traffic was something something. We're to the right, and basically what they had said, you know, once we kind of got back and heard the traffic, they were saying, look out for the wadi. We curved around it to the right, and a wadi
mm-hmm.
is this just big ass dry lake bed. So we were like, oh, there they are to the right. So we steered right at the fucking lake bed, right at the wadi, went in it, and like I said, I'm in the turret. So we're getting tossed around and driving through this uh, wadi. And I remember Sergeant Morrison, he was like, this is the first time I ever heard him freak out, and he's screaming. He's like, stop, stop, reels, god damn it, stop, you know. And like the vehicle almost tipped over, and I was like, I could have reached out and grabbed sand. Like we were so close. So I was like,
Fuck.
death was imminent, you know. But, you know, Captain Frank's death kind of put that in perspective for me too. And I was like, holy shit, I really almost fucking died, you know, and that, like, that could have been me sort of thing, you know, and just thinking about that, you know, more so than anything. But,
That's probably a pretty common thing though for
oh, for sure.
like survivor's guilt kind of deal. Even though you
Right.
weren't there or anything,
Absolutely.
but like you know, like I said, you know him personally. You're on the same deployment.
And
Like
one of the big things with that is like after that incident happened, I remember we all laughed for like 5 straight minutes. Like we were laughing hysterically. We thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And then, you know, he dies and it's just like, why the fuck was I laughing? That wasn't funny, you know? And then, like I said, nobody teaches you really how to deal with that or
yeah,
address those feelings, so to
that's
speak.
one of those things, man. You just kind of everyone. You kind of laugh at a shitty situation sometimes, even if it's not really that
Sure.
funny. Like it's funny. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh,
It's,
absolutely. And dude, that's, you know, we still do it.
I know
We
what you're
still do
saying,
it.
though. I know
Absolutely.
what you're saying.
You know, but, yeah, you know,
Um,
we came back, and like, it was just, the deployment in total was kind of a little bit of a letdown, but I was like, kind of is what it is sort of thing. And then we went back to Okinawa. And I got to be with the unit for a little while after that, and you know, we were partying a lot because, you know, we survived the deployment, you know, so we were partying a lot, and then I turned 20 after the deployment, you know, so, or I'm sorry, during the deployment. So in Okinawa you could drink at 20 instead of 21. So, you know, my corporals were taking me out. You know, some of the guys who were used to be senior to me, I mean, technically, I guess they were still senior to me, but they were taking me out and they're like, all right, fucking chug this fucking bottle of Captain Morgan. I'm like, oh shit, okay, you know, and I'm just throwing up all over the place, and it was great
yeah,
fun, you know.
yeah.
And then, you know, we had our we had our beef with Third Recon, and
The
I'll
old
never.
Anglico recon beef.
Yeah, the old Anglico recon beef. We had this guy, Mike Lynch, and we called him Cinderfist Lynch because of this kind of. This dude, he could put anybody to sleep with these just one hitter quitters. I mean, he was a total savage. Nicest guy you ever want to meet. Like super friendly, talk to you about anything, but like get on his bad side, dude, and you were going night night status, you know. And we're in our bar, you know, Fifth Anglico's bar. I can't remember the name of it, but it was
Well,
ran by this guy named BK. Um,
where in Oki was it?
oh, this was in Kintown. It was called Kintown. We called it Kin Vegas. It was right outside of Camp Hansen, Okinawa. And you know, we were at this bar, and it was kind of this weird setup because it was like you know, the ground floor where you walk in, and there was like maybe like a foot elevated platform on each side, and there was kind of like this circular or kind of U-shaped bar around it that they would give us drinks. And Third Recon happened to be in there in numbers, you know, and they had the high ground. You know, we walk in and we're like looking for
Well,
our
they got the high
guys,
ground. Here we go.
right? Like we're looking for our guys, and we're like, okay, we see like maybe one or two of our guys, but the rest of these fucking guys, I don't know, and they're all fucking mean mugging us. And you know, you kind of start figuring out that like, okay, that dude's Third Recon, that dude's Third Recon, that dude's Third Recon. Oh shit. Everybody in here is Third Recon except for like five of us who are Fifth Anglico, you know. So somehow somebody started some shit, and like it just this
Of
big
course.
fucking brawl, you know. So everybody's punching and kicking and shit, and Mikey Lynch, he's like, all right, follow me, you know, and fucking Cinderfist Lynch on full display. I mean, dude, he's just putting people to sleep with both hands, like, and he just makes us a path out of there. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, that was the craziest fucking thing I've ever seen, you know. But Yeah, it was life in sweet old Okinawa and taco rice.
Okinawa. Everybody talks about the taco rice. I've
Oh,
never
it's so
had it.
fucking good. It is
Is
literally the
there any
best
online
hangover food.
recipes that you found that can replace the
No,
actual taco rice?
no. Like I
It
have
can't be
not
done.
like it is unduplicatable. It is the craziest thing. Like there was just you could just be puking your damn guts out and you have this taco rice and it's like God has come down and touched your tongue and it's just amazing.
I wonder how wrong. How wrong? I wonder how long the taco rice game has been around in Okinawa. Like, if that's like a within the last 10, 15 years kind of thing, or if that's like an old school like taco rice has been around since like Vietnam era
Yeah,
days, stuff like
yeah, I'm
that.
sure it's got to be around since like the nine
It's got a
days,
legacy
man.
there.
Yeah, a little legacy dish.
Everyone talks about it, man. It's famous.
It's
It's
so
taco rice
good.
is famous.
It's amazing. That and cocoa ichibans. Oh, that
So
curry.
when you were coming, so at this point you're probably coming to your end time at Anglico.
Yeah.
What kind of decisions were you given? So okay, first off, you were going to reenlist. Usually, or were you at reenlistment yet, or
No,
were you just leaving?
I was still pretty early on. I was
Okay,
approaching year three, actually. Yeah, year three.
okay. So it wasn't like you were reenlisting and you can use that as leverage to get to a specific unit. So what
Right.
happened after this? Where'd you go?
So I wanted to extend and stay with Fifth Anglico for the rest of my enlistment, but Gunny Studley again was like, "Hey man, do you have plans on staying in the Marine Corps?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I might reenlist." And he's like, "All right, dude. Well, if you put an extension package in, I'm gonna deny it because you need to see the rest of the Marine Corps. You need to see the real Marine Corps before you decide to reenlist." I'm like, "Well, I thought this was a real Marine Corps," and he's like. No, devil dog. Like you need to see either Camp Pendleton or Camp Lejeune. So
They
I'm
let
like,
you walk on the grass everywhere else.
right. So I'm like, all right, Roger that. So I get orders to 5th Battalion, 11th Marines. Turns out that they are making the transition to a full-on rocket battalion of HIMARS, which is basically, imagine like a 7-ton with big telephone poles on the back that are rockets. They're extremely
Hmm.
accurate, which is super cool, but there's literally nothing for 0861 to do there. So we were literally just going there because they rated 0861s. And it wasn't until somebody high up
Just because their
finally.
TO hadn't
Right,
changed yet, right?
exactly. And it wasn't until somebody high up was like, well, what are fucking 0861s doing there? I'm like, well, nothing. Well, then you don't fucking need them. So
Go be a box bitch. That's about it.
right, and that was it. And like, we were good at it. We did the box thing, and it fucking sucked, but we were good at it.
Fucking a FATIDS, man.
Oh,
FATIDS, you learn a FATIDS, and if your command or any senior leadership, like a gunny or a master sergeant, finds out you know a FATIDS,
oh,
your time doing cool stuff is over.
right.
You are the box
You know
bitch.
AFATIDs? Yeah, you
Oh,
gonna be
you're my
doing. You gonna
guy.
be on the box. Come fix this.
Yeah, you're my.
God
Come
damn
here.
it. So that
Fuck that.
sucked.
I need
But
you to put all
then,
these geometries in real quick.
right. So at this point, I am motherfucking Gunny Studley. Like I'm like, you are the biggest piece of shit for making me
You fucked
go,
me.
to the real Marine Corps. But I say, everything that I got to do cool was because of someone else, hooking me up essentially, even though I didn't know it was a hookup at the time. But he was a major player. Like if I didn't go there, I would never have met Staff Sergeant Norman. And Staff Sergeant Norman found out about me and he was talking to me from a Sergeant Kane, who got later promoted to a staff sergeant. And, he was talking to him and, I happened to come up and he's like, "Oh, you're a Fifth Anglico guy?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, did you do that qualified observer program, which was the precursor to the JFO, the Joint Fires Observer Program?" I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, I did it. I passed it." And he's like, "Oh, well, maybe we'll make you a JTAC." I was like, JTAC? Hell yeah, let's do that. So he's like, "Okay, well, as soon as you pick up sergeant, we'll send you to TACP school." I'm like, "Cool." Um, so I picked up sergeant. He snatched me up, sent me to TACP school, and
Were
EWTG
you
pack.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, which was Coronado again, so it was nice getting to go back there. Um,
Especially as not as a student, you can do whatever you want
right,
then.
right, so it was cool, and I was down there, and it turns out I knew a couple guys in the class, which was really cool, so we were hanging out with them, and it's like literally me, two other enlisted guys, and the rest are all pilots, you know.
Hmm.
So we're doing it. We get to the first portion, and um it's artillery, So I'm like, psh, if this is how TACP school's gonna go, this is gonna be fucking easy. So it's literally like you hit like the broadside of this tank that's in the middle of fucking nothing, so it's super easy to hit, and like you just nail it. All the officers
Yeah.
are kind of struggling with it, so you kind of help them and walk them through it. And they're like, oh, okay, thanks, man. So I hit this damn tank, easy money, like first round on fire for effect, one and done. I walk out like Conor McGregor, like I'm feeling like a badass, and then Gunnery Sergeant Cabral walks in, and he's like, "Hey, you Sergeant Brown?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What target did you hit?" I'm like, "Oh, I hit the same one everybody else did, that tank in the open." He was like, "Fuck no." Rips up my damn evaluation sheet, which I fucking aced, and he's like, "You're gonna hit that fucking target." And it's this fucking APC,
You're going to
like,
prove yourself.
right, like way off in the fucking distance, and it's like, God damn it. It's that elevation and shit. So it's like, you got to change your fucking altitude. It's like, fuck me, man. And like looking back on it now, generally speaking, it was an easy target to hit, but like all the officers in the class who are all fucking pilots, pretty smart guys, are all staring at you, to see like if you're gonna fucking nail it, and you do, but it's just like the added pressure is just like this is not fun anymore.
Well, anytime anybody's like everybody's listening to you, that's like that's like you said, added pressure. That's one of the added pressures. Like when you're going through TCP school and like you're going to get your first live control, you're doing your first live aircraft, all the other students are down at the base of the tower or whatever, listening to your control on the radio, and everybody there is picking apart everything you say,
Right.
And that's just kind of really the life of the JTAC, honestly. If you're going out to the field, everyone's listening to you, and every little thing that you say is going to be picked apart, which it should be,
Sure.
It's that's just one of those things. I remember, what was I going to say? Oh, so when I lap moved, I went to when I went to Fort Sill, I had Gunny Abanez as one of my instructors. I don't know if you know him, great guy. He was we were sitting there and we were doing our first live fire at Fort Sill. And before I went to MOS school, I had to wait on a school seat because I was a lap mover. I was at 210 for like 9 months. So I was there doing
Right.
OJT and stuff. So I had a pretty good grasp on what was going on. And while we're sitting there waiting to do our live fire and everybody's doing their terrain sketches and stuff like that, I'm trying to help some of the boots out. They're asking questions. I'm answering. I'm like, hey, try this, do this. Because none of them have ever done a real call for fire before. Just
Sure.
really only us lap movers had done it before.
Right.
And Gunny Abanez was like, I was behind him, a few rows of people talking to these people, and he was listening to me the whole time. So when I step up, he gives me the one target. It's like on a finger, it's
fuck.
like at a distance,
Yep.
on a finger, and there's 3 fingers, and it's on the middle finger. And I'm like,
Wow, the extra little
Yeah.
fuck you.
I'm like, damn it. So same thing, it's that added pressure. So you're thinking about it, and you're like, fuck, everyone's listening. I'm a sergeant. Like, here we go. So I sent
Right.
my call for fire, and I give everything. And he's like, hey, good target location. Like, he said that to me while I was waiting on my message to
Nice.
observer. So I'm like, oh, thank God. Sick.
Right.
And the first round hits, and it hits in between the fingers, so I can't see where it hits, but I see the smoke come out the side of the finger. So I'm like, oh, okay, it hit behind it. Drop 400. and dude, it wasn't behind it; it was in front of it.
Oh
And I couldn't
no.
tell. Yeah, I totally just fucked that whole time, that whole call for fire up because I gave a drop 400 correction when it was already, in front or closer to me.
Dropped, right? Yeah.
And yeah, so, but I know what you're saying though, man. Like, even though it's like I know how to do this and I can do it, like
Yeah.
that little bit of added pressure,
Yeah.
can get you sometimes. But I did all right. I just fucked up my correction just because it was super hard to tell, man. You could only tell when the smoke came out from the side of the finger to see, and then you had to
Right.
kind of guess on which finger it came out of. So it was a
Right.
difficult target, but oh well.
Absolutely.
So you finished TCP school. What did they do with you then?
So I actually, it's literally as soon as I finished TACP school, I had orders to third LAR. Like I didn't even have time to essentially go back to my barracks room and get my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I literally just, well, I mean, I kind of did, but I literally just grabbed the gear that I needed and went right to 29 Palms. So I was there, we did our workup, which was, pretty standard workup, nothing really to write home there about. Um, but I ended up, when we went to, um, what do you call it? Mojave Viper. That isn't like the best place for a brand spanking new JTAC. Um,
Yeah.
everything's a little bit different. They're expecting you to kind of do more theater standard things. Um, and I was still in schoolhouse mode, so I'm just trying to do everything just like the schoolhouse. And I kind of showed my ass a little bit, obviously, for because of that. And we deployed, so they're like, okay, well, you're going to be with the headquarters element of Comanche Company, so that the company commander and XO can approve all your fires pretty quickly. So I'm like, okay, cool. Um, and that deployment at the very beginning, I thought it was going to be more like Iraq again, and you forget that you're with a light armored unit, so you just go out for fucking days, and you'll just be out there, doing snap VCPs and shit like that. And it was like, fuck me, this fucking blows. But you make some really tight bonds, some really good friendships. And our first sergeant who I was with, who was Black 99, Comanche Company, this dude, he looked and talked just like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, I
Oh, really?
swear to God, he was Stone Cold's twin. Like, and he was just as cool as Stone Cold. Like he would let his Marines pretty much do whatever they wanted if it made them a better Marine. So like at the time there was a lot of, oh, you can't wear this, you can't wear that, you can't wear, these Converse boots that were like just coming out and that were all the rage. Everybody wanted to wear them, but the Marine Corps was like, fuck no, that's not good order and discipline. But he was like, look, man, if it makes you a better Marine, if it makes you a better warfighter, fucking wear it. I don't give a shit. So that was super cool. And there was actually a couple times, um, pre-deployment and post-deployment, he would stand up on the LAV with, somebody would throw him 2 beers and he'd do the stone cold and fucking pour it in his mouth and shit. He was fucking awesome guy. But
That's funny.
yeah, that was
He played the part.
yeah, he absolutely did. I mean, he knew it and he loved it. So um that deployment at first kind of sucked like Iraq, but then we started getting mortared a lot, and oddly enough, we were actually there uh during 3.5's heaviest casualties, and I had two really close friends in 3.5. My one friend Shane, he was motor T, but he ended up essentially being a rifleman, and then another really close friend who ended up being killed um, in 3.5, Derek Wyatt, Corporal Derek Wyatt. We all went to high school together, and
Oh, really? Wow.
yeah, he joined the Marine Corps just before us, and he did Presidential Guard detail, and he kind of felt guilty about it because he's like, all my friends are deploying and I'm not. And I was like, yeah, dude, you should fucking hop on the deployment, fucking do it, because I had just come back from Iraq and my buddy Shane had just done a MEU and like I said, he hadn't deployed. He had been on Presidential Guard detail the whole time. So we were like telling him, oh yeah, yeah, you want to deploy, you're a Marine, you got to deploy, you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, he goes on this deployment and he gets fucking killed, and literally the day before he was killed, his son was born, you know.
Oh man,
So oh man,
that
dude,
sucks.
it was so fucked. And they went River City, but before they went River City, my boy Shane, who was my best friend, like I said, he was able to Facebook message me and tell me, that Derek was killed. And that fucked me up, especially because there was a lot of talk of 3rd LAR going up to support 3-5 because we weren't doing a whole hell of a lot
Mm-hmm.
where we were, which was like the Kanishing Landay province. Um, so there was a lot of talk of us going up there, and then because tanks would get stuck at the time, and we
Yeah,
just fucking didn't. And that
saying it's a shitty spot to have tanks at.
absolutely right. And that was my thing. I was like, why didn't they fucking send it? And I like for like 2 solid weeks, like I didn't talk to anybody. I was just fucking mute status. I didn't want to hear about shit. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to have fun. Like our big thing was playing spades. We like I didn't want to do that. Like I was fucked for a hot minute. And then I kind of came out of the funk and I still did my job and we were able to deliver some good fire support, but it was just that, for a while, like I said, it kind of really messed me up, and I never fully addressed it at the time as well as I should have, and it came to kind of bite me in the butt later on in my career, which we'll get to, but
That's, I
um,
mean, Afghanistan's a bad place to find out when your buddy's been killed.
oh, dude, it's horrible.
Like, because you don't really have time to process it, especially if
No,
you're in an active area, or if
yeah,
your unit's active a lot. Like, it's
yeah,
like, dude, okay, I sympathize with you, but we got a mission we got to go do. Like, we got to go. And
right,
it sucks. It's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, but
yeah.
man,
And that was,
yeah,
the friends I had made at 3rd LAR were able to kind of give me my space, uh, as needed sort of thing. Obviously, like you said, we still had a job to do, and I still fucking did it.
yeah.
Um,
LAR had a
but
huge AO down there.
oh, it's massive, dude. Like, a funny thing about that is because, like I said, we would push out for like, a month, and we just be like fucking out there sleeping on the fucking vehicle and shit, digging like little ranger graves and shit. And after the deployment, kind of fast forward a little bit, one of my buddies, well, when I got back, he's like, "Hey man, I haven't been camping in a long time. Let's go camping." And I just fucking looked at him like, "Motherfucker, do you know what I've been doing for the last 7 goddamn months?" It was like, "You
So
want
I'm
to go
that kind of
fucking
guy. I'm the
camping?"
same way.
Right. I'm like,
I'd be the one
"Fuck
that's like, let's go
you."
camp, man. We just got out of the field. Let's go camping this weekend. Like,
I was like, "Fuck you and fuck camping," But
yeah.
yeah, the deployment kind of was what it was. That was, like I said, obviously a very low point for me that came back to bite me in the butt. But like I said, made some really good friends. And we were doing a lot of snap VCPs, and we'd be pushed out for like a month or two. Well, generally like a month to 2 weeks to a month, we'd be pushed out for just doing random ass snap VCPs.
What were you trying to for the vehicle checkpoints? What were you trying to get?
We were literally just interdicting, trying to get fucking drugs or guns. And we actually found a shitload of heroin, a little bit of marijuana, a couple guns, but nothing crazy. Like the DEA actually sent us a message on BFT how we had impacted the street price of heroin. We're like, "Oh, cool, man. Like that's super awesome." Um, but funny story, like right after we got that, we were like, oh, well, shit, let's pack it up and go home for a little bit of R&R, you know. So we're coming back, and there was this crazy fucking rainstorm, right? And we're going back to Cop Payne, which is, you know, where we were kind of placed,
Hmm.
and we had to ford the Helmand to get back to, you know, Cop Payne. Well, like I said, there was this crazy rainstorm, so the Helmand was a little bit flooded at this point, and there was a base kind of north of us that had um open, like its dam or whatever had failed.
Okay.
So the Helmand was a lot higher than it appeared to be, you know, and uh blue platoon, so like each one of our platoons was separated into colors. So black was headquarters, I think. First platoon was red, second platoon was white, and third platoon was blue, I think.
Okay.
Um, so, you know, blue platoon was getting ready to cross first. And their team chief, who was a sergeant, was like, hey, you know, the river's too deep. We can't fucking ford it. No fucking way. And this fucking guy, I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he's still in or not. Um, Fuck him.
That's cool.
Lieutenant Urban,
Fuck him.
he was dead set on crossing this goddamn river. And the team chief's like, no, sir, like, we're not gonna fucking make it. It's too deep. He's like, no, we're gonna fucking do it. He's like, what the fuck ever. Take your vehicle across then, you know. So he's like, okay. So he does it, you know. I mean, I think everybody knows how large equipment sounds, you know, while it's working hard. So the
Yeah.
thing's cranking up. It's like, "Wow, wow, 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 wow," and you're like, oh shit. You know, that black smoke starts coming out. You're like, oh shit, you know, and then it just stops. Silence.
Oh
And
no.
the LAV just starts sinking. And motherfuckers start like pouring out of this bitch, you know, like, we're
Fuck.
taking fucking water, you know. So then this emergency fucking goes out over the comms. So they're like, oh shit. So guys from Cop Payne come down, and we're coming like across from the shore, and we're like, fuck, how are we gonna get these fucking guys? You know, because if it's like, it's starting to take the LAV downriver, you know,
Oh
slowly,
man.
but it's taking it. You know, so we're like, fuck, man, if it's taking LAV, it's gonna damn sure take these guys. So we're trying to get this quick action plan together to rescue these fucking guys. You know, like, all right, well, who's the best fucking swimmer? You know, it's like Doc and then like some other fucking guy over there, you know, on the other side. So they're like, okay, we're gonna fucking tie him off, and you're gonna fucking start upstream, and you're gonna fucking let the river take you and grab these fucking guys. We're like, what the fuck? All right, fine. You know, because like literally we're out of options. You know, so you know, Doc and this other guy jump in, and they're grabbing these fucking dudes. You know, long story short, we get all the like the crypto gear and laptops off the fucking LAV and get these guys rescued, you know, but it was like afterwards, like the company commander was like, okay, who was the fucking asshole that decided it was okay to ford the fucking Helmand after this fucking storm? You know, and then everybody kind of just like looks at Lieutenant Urban. He's like, "Oh, well, the team chief
Yeah.
said it was okay." And he's like, fuck no, you know, just lit his ass on fire. But,
Dude,
um,
that's fucked up. He's trying to throw somebody else
yeah, he's
under
a
the bus
fucking
for his
asshole.
call.
He's a fucking prick. You know, so you know, they were, I think like a week later, the river finally receded enough to where they were able to get the vehicle out. And I mean, dude, when they brought this thing back to the fucking motor pool, like they opened up those rear hatches, and like a little bit of water flowed out. Like I was expecting like a river of water to flow out, but like a little bit flowed out, and then just mud, just metric tons of fucking mud, and a
Ugh.
few fish came out, and you're just like, fuck, it's like this is gonna take so long to clean up, you know. But
Was the vehicle fucked up from it?
vehicle was completely fucked, completely
Yeah,
fucked. Like there was so much mud and just nasty ass river water inside of this fucking thing. Like the vehicle was totaled. I mean,
that's
it
crazy.
was done, you know. But
We had a we had a LAV in Malaysia get stuck in the mud, and they pulled it out with a 53. I think they said that's the heaviest load a 53's ever came in and picked up, because not only did it pick up the weight of the vehicle, but it had
all
to
the
pull it
mud,
free from the
yeah,
mud, because the other LAVs that were there, the other equipment that was there, couldn't free it. So yeah, this was I was on the 11th MEU on
holy
my
shit,
my last deployment,
that's nuts.
2016. I think is when we were in Malaysia, 2017 maybe.
Yeah,
But
okay.
damn, I'm dying here.
Yeah, we still had like one final op that we did down in Byram Cha, and you know I got to tell these two funny stories. But the first one, so we're doing it. It was like we hit the city, and it was a point of entry between Afghan and Pakistan. We hit the city, and it like the Marines were fighting fucking like house to house, you know, and it was funny because we had a LAV just laid down the street. You know, the 25 Mike fucking gun just laid down the street. And this shithead popped out with an RPG, tried to fucking nail the LAV, you know. Obviously the Bushmaster fucking mowed his ass down, you know. And we're like, okay, well that's the end of that. And well then another fucking guy tried to grab the RPG, cut his ass down. Another guy, I think it was like 4 or 5 dudes that
It's
this
like, leave it alone, dude.
right, like holy shit, like do you not see the stack of bodies next to this fucking RPG, you know? And then they tried to set an ambush for us because they knew we were gonna hit it, you know, because there was literally nothing between that area and where we were.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were starting making our way down there, like, oh well, they must be coming for us. Um, they set up on the side of this mountain, like these dug in fighting positions, and but we didn't come from that way, you know. So I had like as we were getting ready to leave, I had this Huey Cobra section on, and I was just controlling them, having looking around at stuff and see if there was any shitheads anywhere. And then they just by happenstance look over to the left and see these fucking shitheads set up on the mountain side of the mountain. They're like, oh shit, we got these fighting positions. They describe the target to me. I'm like, well, fuck me, you know. So I talked to the CO, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna just let these guys go fucking Winchester on it. He's like, psh, fine by me. So I give them the brief. I tell them, hey, you know, type 3 control till Winchester. They're like, all right, good to go. They give me their in, clear to engage. It is just havoc for like 5 straight minutes. And, you know, for if there's any non-military people listening to this, 5 minutes seems like a short amount of time, but 5 minutes for a rotary wing aircraft to consistently be firing
Yeah,
is a
that's a couple passes right there.
eternity. Like that's an eternity, you know. So the company commander, he's like, hey, you know, I need some BDA. And I was like, okay. So I call him like, hey, you know, can you give me a quick updated BDA? And they're like, dude, there's fucking bodies everywhere, limbs and
Oh,
parts and
jeez.
blood and spit and guts and ass everywhere. I can't give you a BDA. I'm like, well, you just try and piece some of them together and give me a roundabout BDA.
Yeah,
Okay. You know, they're like, fucking like 20 KIA, I guess, you know. So he's like, I'm like, 20? All right, okay. So I tell the boss 20. He's like, really? 20? You know, I'm like, look, man, they got dudes jumping off the mountain, like trying to get away from these rockets and guns. Like, there's,
that's
I don't
crazy.
know, you know.
20
But,
fighters all at once would be crazy.
oh, dude, it was nuts. It was nuts. Like, there was, like, we ended up staying for like an extra night, and some of the LAV gunners got, there's this mountain lion that was like walking off the mountain with a guy's fucking arm in his mouth. Like,
Oh God.
so I used to have I used to have a picture of that in nods, but something happened to it. So
That's crazy.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
nuts, dude,
those things definitely do exist out there. So,
for sure.
what was it at this point? You were a sergeant, right? You hadn't been selected for staff sergeant or anything?
Correct. Yeah, still sergeant.
And were you coming up for re-enlistment or orders or anything after this deployment?
Yeah, so
What was kind of the mindset when you're on your way back? Were you coming back to go to another unit, or were you going to be with 11th? You were 11th Marines, right?
Yeah.
11th Marines
So
for a little bit longer.
I had actually re-enlisted right before we deployed to Afghanistan because I had promised Staff Sergeant Norman that I would re-enlist if he sent me to TACP school. So, that kind of deal was already done. Excuse me, but I came back. We came back with 3rd LAR back to Pendleton. Went back to 11th Marines Division FSCC, and I actually started teaching. It was like this precursor course to TACP school for enlisted guys because there was this huge push for JTACs, and they didn't have enough officers, so they started sending all these 0861s, and they started sending some recon dudes and shit, but they were not doing well in TCP school. They were failing. So they're like, all right, look, you have to start this JTAC primer course, and Gunny Cabral, who ended up becoming Mass Sergeant Cabral, from TACP school, came back to 11th Marines and was responsible for standing up the program, him and Major Cooper. And they stood up the program, and we were responsible for teaching it. So we did,
Yeah.
And we literally just tried to teach everything that TACP school taught, kind of like a light version so that guys wouldn't be so blindsided by what was taught in TACP school. Because, dude, getting exposed to TACP school pretty much dry, like, it's a lot. Because, like,
it's a lot to take in, especially if you're not from the MOS.
Absolutely. Like, you learn, okay, here's the type 1 control, here's all what it consists of in the morning, and then in the afternoon, you're fucking doing it for grade,
Yeah.
and it's just like, fuck me, dude, I just learned this shit in the morning. How you expect me to do it now, So we were teaching that, which wasn't too bad. We helped a lot of guys, but we were also kind of mini gatekeepers, I guess. Like we were able to tell Gunny Cabral and Massar Cabral and Major Cooper, like, hey, this fucking dude ain't gonna cut it. Like, he, he's been here for 3 weeks and he still can't figure out how to use a goddamn protractor. Like, that shit.
Some
don't
guys
fly.
just don't get it. Some guys never get it.
I mean, it is what it is. Like, I'm not trying to say they're bad guys or anything. Like, this just doesn't compute for them, which is fine. We even had a guy that was a conscientious objector. Like, all of a sudden, this dude,
going through TACP primer.
Yeah, like all of a sudden he decided, like, he read the Bible and he was like, oh, I don't think killing people's okay. And I'm like,
all right.
You're
right.
My fucking guy. Like,
there's some people that deserve
you're an 0861 by trade, and you've been in the community for 5 years now, and now all of a sudden it's not okay to kill people.
I'm not down with this. No.
I'm like, dude, did you skip the entire Old Testament? Because that's literally what the whole thing is, almost. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
God is laying waste, but whatever. So we're able
that, man. It's a lot of pressure for some guys. I remember I actually got my seat for TACP school. I came back from Afghanistan, and in 2012, I was back at the very, very end of 2011, beginning of 2012.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, do you want to go to TCP school? Because at the time, I was a lap mover, and they told me I was a sergeant, but they're like, we're not going to send you to TCP. We're not sending people to TCP school until they do a deployment as an 0861. And then when you come back,
right,
then you can screen, and then you can go.
Right.
So I came back, and they're like, all right, you want to go to TCP school? Yes, I do. they send me over to do the primer, but they're like, hey, we only have one seat. You're the alternate. This other dude is going. And our instructor is Top German. I don't know if you ever heard of him. But
I've heard the name for sure.
He's a legend out on the East Coast for sure. And he had just come from TCP school down to he was an instructor there. He came back down to 10th Marines to be the JTAC manager and stuff.
Right.
And I remember there's like 3 of us going through this course, and there's this one dude, the guy that was supposed to be going through the class, or actually going to school, who just wasn't getting it. And I would be sitting there, it'd be like this guy sitting here, I'm sitting next to him, and then Top German would be next to me on the the main computer. And this dude would fuck something up, and German is just yelling across me, just like at him. And I'm just sitting there like trying to just not like look at anything, just stare at the ground or whatever. And because German was firm but fair, he's one of those guys like, you're a fucking 0861, you should know these things, and if you don't, why not? Especially as a sergeant. He would not accept.
That's how Cabral
he would not
was.
accept a sergeant or an 0861 in general that couldn't do something that was demanded by their MOS. He was just like, and one day this dude came in. He's like, hey, Gunny, or I know he was a Master Sergeant then. He's like, hey, Master Sergeant. He's like, I decided I'm getting out. He's like, I've decided this isn't for me. And this dude was getting ready to re-enlist and like all this stuff. And Top German broke him, And he's just like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, Kramer, you ready to go to school? And I'm like, yep. He's like, all right, you're going next week. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And then I got to come back. Well, then I got to come back. And then before I deployed, while I was kind of waiting for everything to happen, I got to teach a couple primers with him. I was a JTAC instructor, and he was, the head instructor. And I was down there to teach not the JTAC ones, but the JFO primers.
Right.
And there's a story I got about him. Yeah, I gotta tell it. Fuck it, I don't care. I was gonna wait because it's a really good story, or I think it is. It really highlights him as a person, or as a 061, and like. So we would get kind of like you did. We did the primer courses. We set that up, and for JFO we'd have like 20 dudes, and half of them are 0861s, and the other half are like machine gunners or snipers or whoever. They'd send them from division, and maybe 1 or 2 from like a CLB or something, but mostly from division, like infantry units and stuff. And I just remember there was this kid, we were doing map plotting, we were practicing map plotting, and there was this kid who was like a mortarman or something, and he's sitting there going, and Top German's like, hey, everyone, plot this grid, and he's like, this is your grid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever the grid was. Yeah. And he walks over, and he's like walking around, and I'm looking at the kid, and I see him kind of fucking it up, and I'm like, that's not it, man. You got to fix that. And German comes over, and he's like, hey, what's the problem, man? What are you doing? He's like, what's the grid again, Master Sergeant? He's like, the grid's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the kid's like, adjusts his map a little bit. He starts to pull out a protractor, and Top German's like, you don't need that. He's like, just finger plot it. And he's like, and so the kid puts it to the side, and he's sitting there staring at the map, and he's trying to figure it out. And no. Top German's like, the grid is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the kid just sitting there still trying to figure it out. He's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he starts saying it over and over and louder. And then he slams his hands down, one on each side of his fucking map. And he's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What's your fucking problem? And he's like, Tom, you're stressing me the fuck out. I can't do this. And he just lost it. I'm like, dude. I mean, I guess people on the outside can't really understand it, but it's like, dude, you have to be able to plot shit under pressure. Yeah, and that's like, absolutely. There's zero pressure. You're in an air-conditioned classroom, with I don't know. It was pretty funny, though, but. Right. Yeah. Yeah, he was a great dude. He was fucking super smart. He's one of those guys that if you know him, or he was one of those guys that if you were going to talk to him about fire support, you had to know what you're talking about. Right, if you didn't, absolutely. He would fuck you up.
Absolutely.
So,
That's
anyway.
Funny because like it reminds me of one of my favorite phrases that I really can't say anymore because it doesn't mean anything. But when you really want someone to do something or process something fast, you're like, oh, come on, man, Marines are dying, and like you can't,
Yeah.
I can't say that anymore because it's like, well, that doesn't mean anything to
Nothing
you,
else in
but
life is as serious as as it was then.
right, yeah,
At least not in. I mean, not in my world. You're
right,
a firefighter now,
yeah,
so there's
mine is
definitely.
similar, but you know,
Yeah, I'm a college student and I make podcasts, so it's a little bit more chill over here on this neck of the
right,
woods.
right.
So anyway, you finished. So you're at 11th Marines. You're chiefed in the primer. When did you find out that you're going to your next unit, and where'd you go?
So it honestly, dude, it felt like a year and a half, but it really was only about a year because my first Afghan deployment was 2010 to 2011. We ended up coming back in the summer. And then like I said, I was at the primer, I was teaching the primer, and then I went to 2-5, the most decorated battalion in the Marine Corps, in 2012. And we deployed in 2012. So I had a kind of a short workup with them. Um, really, really cool unit, made some really, really good friends.
Where'd you
There
guys go to?
we went to Afghanistan and we went to the Musa Kala district. We were at
Hmm.
Kop Shergazi, their 2-5 Echo Company. Uh, hashtag fun fact. We were actually the subject of what was it, the 2000, I think 2012 movie Battle for Los Angeles. So,
Oh, really?
yep. None of
Straight up
us were
Hollywood
in it.
Marine.
I think it was like 2-1 that ended up being in that movie or whatever. But they definitely dropped a few retreat hells in that in Battle for Los Angeles.
I've never seen it.
No big deal. Oh my God. You are missing out on a cinematic masterpiece, sir. No, I'm kidding. It's a shit
I'll take
movie.
your word for it. I'll take your word for it.
Um, but uh, basically, we went there with a couple of 0861s turned JTAC, Levi Bard's life, which is one of the reasons I really wanted to do this podcast because of him. And then Anthony DeFlito. We went to our respective companies. Um, but 2-5 was a very interesting unit and deployment for me because I had a awful, God, awful direct boss, Lieutenant Dietz. Fuck him. If I ever see him,
Very
dude,
well.
listen, if I ever see this dude in the street, like it's gonna be a misunderstanding. I'm just throwing that out there now.
Damn.
Um, he was he was not well liked in the unit. He was a Cambridge and Yale guy, I think. Cambridge and Princeton. I don't know. One of those, couple of those Ivy League schools he went to.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't his intelligence that was a problem. It was his need to be the most intelligent person in the room, and
Yeah.
everybody had to know it. And he was a former Merrill Lynch guy. He actually turned out he got fired from Merrill Lynch. Um, but like he was just a total pompous ass about everything, and he was a total coward. But enough about him. Um,
Get it all out, man.
um,
It's a therapy session right now.
right.
Let it all out. No.
But I made some really really awesome friends there, just like in Third LAR, and the friends I have from that unit, I still talk to on almost a daily basis, and I've
Oh,
visited
that's
several
awesome.
times. Um, but yeah, that unit was pretty cool because that's that's where I did a lot of the fighting in that unit. Like I dropped a couple bombs while I was in Third LAR, but at 2-5 I dropped a lot, and I actually got to kill a ZPU, ZPU
Oh,
one,
sick.
in
What year
in
was this?
in this was 2012.
Okay.
So it
So
was it was kind
Musicalo
of
is still a shithole.
yeah, oh for sure. And it was a pretty interesting story because um, for weeks we had been getting those email threat updates that oh, there's anti-air in the area. There's anti-air in there. And, the first couple you're like, okay, yeah, whatever, and then like it was the daily we were getting updates about it. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden they're like, okay, hey, there's definitely anti-air in your area. Rotary wing aircraft will no longer fly for you until this thing is sorted out. So I'm like, well, what the fuck? So now I'm just running fixed wing, all the time, which, whatever. But it was just the fact that there was that significant of a threat in the area. And it's funny because like I'll never forget this story because I was actually on the phone in the MWR on the cop with my girlfriend, who is my wife now. And we're talking, and I had to keep a radio on me. I had to keep a little black gear radio on me, um, just in case there was a troops in contact or whatever, so that I could run to the COC and
Yeah, yeah.
bring in air support and dispatch the bad guys. So I'm on the phone with her, and we're literally like discussing our wedding plans because as soon as we get back, we're getting married. And my buddy Smitty, who I still talk to like almost every day, um, he calls me on the radio and he's like,
Hmm.
"Hey, and my call sign uh, was Skidmark, and he's like, "Hey, Skidmark is COC. We got that ZPU in the area. It's destroying one of our outposts." And I'm like, "Oh my God," and at this point, my wife knew the drill. Like she knew, she heard my radio go off. I had to go. I was like, all right, well, babe, I gotta go. They think they found the anti-aircraft gun. I'm sure it's not, but whatever. She's like, okay, just be safe. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Hang up the phone. And I'm like, I'm not like moseying to the COC, but I'm like kind of like diddy bopping with a purpose, I guess. And
Hmm.
I get there, and we had this big projector that was one of the PGSS feeds, which was like this huge blimp that we would float up, and it could
Yeah.
see for miles around.
Everywhere.
Right. So it's looking at this fucking thing, and I walk into the doorway to the COC where the projection is, and it's, dude, like all fucking hell is breaking loose, and there's like a no shit ZPU-1 in direct lay just tearing apart this fucking um Iraqi, or I'm sorry, Afghan army outpost. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm like, shit's real. He's like, yeah, we were telling you that's the fucking thing. I'm like, fuck. So I call the air officer who's back at Musakela. I'm like, hey, I need fucking air right now. We got the ZPU. He's like, what? Like, yeah,
Shit's
dude, I got
happening.
the ZPU. It's right here. It's going down. He's like, okay, I'm gonna get you some fucking air. So I hang up the phone, and company commander, Captain Frericks, he's looking at me, he's like, where the fuck is the air? I'm like, it's coming. It's gonna be a few minutes. So they pulled him from some ISR they were doing. And they come over to me, and it's a section of F-16s, and they had GBU 54s. Um, so I think I put them up at 12 to 15, Angels 12 to 15, because I didn't want to spook the ZPU because I didn't have direct eyes on. I was just looking through the PGSS. So they were going to have to acquire the target, and I'd have to do a Type 2 control, obviously. Um,
Yeah.
but there was some cloud cover, so they couldn't fucking see it. And just as the clouds broke, the fucking ZPU jammed. So I'm like,
Oh, nice.
fuck me. So like they're looking for this fucking thing, they can't see it. And we could kind of just barely see the crew of the ZPU like working on this fucking thing, trying to get it up. And it was so funny because like it was me, Lieutenant Dietz, Captain Frericks, my buddy Smitty, and the watch officer and the radio man were all in the COC, like intently watching this feed. And like it's so funny because we're all rooting for these Taliban shitheads to get this ZPU up and working again and start firing so that the aircraft can acquire it, So we're like, come on, fucking work the jam. So they're trying to get it up, and then they finally start firing again. Well, I'm sorry. The F-16s were like, "Hey man, we're gonna have to fucking check off. We're kind of running low on fuel, and we got to get back." I'm like, "Fuck! Well, can you just stay on for a couple minutes more?" I'm like, "No, we gotta fucking get back." I'm like, "Fuck! Okay." So they start leaving, and then the ZPU gets up and starts firing again. I'm like, "Wait! Do you see the ZPU firing?" And they're like, "Oh." Fuck, okay, hold on, we'll come back. So they come back and they're starting to look and like, we fucking see it. So I give them the 9 line and they fucking run out and then they run in, they give me their in heading, drop the bomb, blows this fucking ZPU to kingdom fucking come.
Got
It
him.
was amazing. Like everybody's fucking dude, it was like the end of Independence Day. Like everybody sees this fucking thing blow up and like this COC erupts into this thunderous applause and everybody's patting me on the back and I'm the fucking quarterback that just threw the fucking Super Bowl winning touchdown. So we I send them back and everybody's kind of like looking around and like, all right, well, what do we do now? The captain's like, well, we got to get BDA, so why don't we bring the fucking thing back? He kind of looks around the room and everybody's like, yeah, I guess we could bring it back. Yeah, why not? Fuck it. So they send one of the platoons out, they grab this fucking thing, they bring it back, and long story long, it's sitting in front of 25 CP right now, bronzed. Um, Not with my
That's
name on
sick,
it.
dude.
So yeah, so
Well, it's
yeah.
now forever known, on the podcast. So
Yeah,
people
there we
know.
go. So yeah, pretty cool little story there. But
That is cool though. That when you can go back to it and like show people like, hey, check it
yeah,
out. As long as they
yeah,
keep it. Some
yeah.
units get rid of their. I think it was at right before I left ANGLICO, or not right before. At some point while I was at ANGLICO, I don't know if
Uh,
they made them do it or the CO just decided to do it. But we had some like I think a ZPU like a I don't know. We had two smaller foreign weapons out in front of the
yeah.
CP, and they came in one day and they're like, "Hey, we're getting rid of them."
What
And
the
we're like,
fuck?
"What?" Yeah,
Why?
we're like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "Yeah, like the CO says they gotta go." And like I said, I don't know if it was his call or if it was like came from higher that for
That's
some reason they had to get rid of
bullshit.
them. But yeah, it's so fucked up. I'm like, dude, that's war
That's the
trophies, bro.
thing. That's where everybody meets at. That's the focal point of the. Yeah, it sucks, man.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So how else was or did you have anything else cool happen up in Musakela? And it's such a shitty area, dude. That place is
um,
just
really the
crawling with
only
bad
other
dudes.
crazy thing that happened was ICAT. I don't know if you're familiar with ICAT flight, but they were
Mm.
basically this Russian company,
Oh yeah,
which right. Yeah, as soon as I mentioned the Russians, like everybody's like,
yeah.
"Oh yeah."
The Russian helicopter. Yeah,
This fucking all white helicopter. These fucking Russian bastards in Afghanistan, like they were responsible for fucking dropping off our mail. Um, and y- Oddly enough, we had a couple M777s laid out over our LZ, and we had a couple incidents with that. But fucking ICAT flight, man, these fucking assholes. I would try and give them an in brief, LZ brief. They weren't having any of it.
yeah,
So I'm
no
like,
way.
okay, whatever. And then, they're like, oh, just pop smoke. So I'm like, okay, cool. Pop smoke? I'm like, negative on smoke, landing anyway. I'm like, uh, where are you? Like, we're landing, dropping off mail now. Like, fuck no, you're not. Where the fuck are you?
Yeah, you guys
You
have just
know,
landed somewhere else.
these fucking assholes apparently landed a click outside of the actual city we were outside of. And the city was fucking hostile.
Yeah.
So, like, dudes are getting ready to move on their fucking pods. I'm like, listen, dude, unless you want to fucking die today, you better fucking take off and find my smoke because you're about to get schwacked, dude.
I
So,
wonder who runs that program because those dudes bring in like fruits and veggies and all that other
yeah, like all
bullshit.
sorts of crazy shit. But anyway, these fucking guys land, they get out. Turns out they're fucking drunk.
Oh,
Like,
no surprise.
legitimately drunk. And they shut the bird down. And I'm like, no, no, no. You cannot shut down here. Like, you've got to
Yeah.
fucking get that bird spinning and get the fuck out of here. Because there's going to be some RPGs en route shortly. You know, so like, oh, we will figure out. You know, so I'm like, whatever the fuck that means. So we get all the mail off, and these bastards don't know how to start the fucking helo. Like, legitimately don't know how to start it. Like, they break out the user's manual and they have it on the fucking flight deck, and they're like flipping pages through it, and he's like giving fucking
That's
Ivan
so
up
crazy.
there directions on how to fucking the sequence of operations to start it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You
They would
know,
land in our LZ and just shut down too. You're like, you wouldn't even know they're coming. They would just come out
yeah,
of nowhere,
they show
land,
up.
shut down, and you're like, what the fuck, dude? This is like an active LZ. Like, there could be other stuff coming through here, and you're shut down.
Well, dude, there was a couple
But
times that like the Arrow literally called me and he was like, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Why are you not in the LZ?" Like, uh, because there's nothing going on. He's like, "ICAT's in your LZ." I'm like, "What the fuck? They never
yeah, dude,
called me, what the shit, But it was just a constant bullshit with
it's
those guys.
that's such a weird thing with those dudes,
Yeah, absolutely.
man. So where'd you go after you left? You left Musakela, heading back to the states. This is what, your third deployment?
Yeah, that was my third deployment. So I actually came back to first Marine Division FSCC at 11th Marines, and Master Cabral was still there running the show, being the JTAC manager, and
Mm-hmm.
we got the illustrious Master Guns Brummage. I don't know if you know that name,
I know the
but
name. I don't think we've ever met though.
yep, he's definitely another asshat. So this fucking guy,
Air your
he
grievances.
yes, oh, I will air all of them. So this guy, he made 4 deployments in total. Longest war in American history, and he's made 4 deployments as a master guns on all 4 deployments. Um, and he
He was a master
was,
guns on all four of his deployments.
hmm he
What?
deployed, he deployed with CAG, Civil Affairs Group. Yep, yep. Not
Huh?
even, not even in
What the hell?
combat.
What was he doing?
I have no fucking clue. Every time
I
he
like I
told
said,
it,
I
it
don't
was a
know the guy. I
different
don't want to
fucking
disparage
story.
him because I don't know him.
No, fuck that guy. Every time he told the story of any of his deployments, it was like a different fucking set of circumstances. Like at one point he was with the post office. At another point it was Civil Affairs Group. At another point it was like CLR or some bullshit like that. It was like crazy shit. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Um, but the guy, he was like.
Was he a JTAC?
No, he was 0861. He
Okay.
was he was he was one of those dudes who like if you were only concerned with getting promoted, he was one of
Hmm.
those guys. I was actually
That
funny,
sucks.
oddly enough, I was just talking to Bart about this, Levi. Uh and like he was a career drill instructor, which I got no problem with drill instructors. I wanted to be a drill instructor at one point, but the guy was just too much about that and not about this. Like you got to be well rounded. There's a balance. You got to take in. Um, but anywho, um, the one story I remember about this fucking guy is like he was not the JTAC manager. Let me really drive that point home. Not
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
JTAC
asking if he
manager.
was a JTAC.
So, Masson Cabral was the JTAC manager at the time, and I had already talked to Gunny Norman, who was the same staff sergeant Norman who recruited me to be the JTAC. He recruited me to go to MARSOC. So he got me orders. So I'm literally just biding my time at Division FSCC to punch out to go to MARSOC. So Brummage is like talking this big talk about how he controls everybody's career and how he can make the earth move and all this bullshit.
Yeah,
And
right.
he's like, so he culminates it with this, okay, and he's got like all the JTACs and the 11th Marines in this classroom. And he's like, who wants to go to MARSOC? Everybody raises their hands except me. I don't raise my hand because, fuck this guy. I already got orders. Fuck
Yeah.
him. So I'm like, I'm not going to give him the satisfaction. And he's like, who's that in the back? I'm like, oh, it's Sergeant Brown, Master Guns. He's like, you don't want to go to MARSOC? You don't want to be a part of the team? And he like launches into this rant about like, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to be a fucking hard charger and a fucking go-getter and all this bullshit. And he's like, why don't you want orders to MARSOC? So I stand up, get a parade rest. I'm like, well, because I already have orders to MARSOC, Master Guns, like, there's really nothing you can do for me right now. So he's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, why didn't you just fucking say that? He's just like launches into another rant about like honor, courage, commitment. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, really with
What are
this
you
guy?
talking about?
Right,
Yeah.
So that was pretty much that. And then I think like a week or so later, I went to MARSOC, you know.
And how
Um,
was that? This is, and just to point out, this was prior to, like, this was like kind of a unnamed or on, what am I saying? By name, like, thing at that point. There was no
right,
like
absolutely.
screening, like, we're gonna screen your book. You're gonna sit in front of a board. You're gonna do the
Right.
SAVT with a fucked up scenario, and then you're gonna do the what they started a thing. It's like
Well,
a couple, like 1 or 2 months long, where it's like a basic
it
training course for support personnel coming over there.
yeah, so they had the what's called the MARSOC Fires course. And there was kind of a screening. It was more so Gunny Norman kind of saying like, hey, are you interested in coming to MARSOC? And you're like, oh yeah, I want to go. And he's like, okay, let's you and me go down to the SAVT, supporting arms virtual trainer. And you'd go with him and he'd put you through a scenario and he kind of like take notes on it. Like, okay, right on, good to go. Like, yeah, we'd like to have you, and it was just like Gunny Norman who turned into Mass R Norman. So Mass R Norman was like a total fucking bro. Like everything was chill with him and it was just, either you were good or you weren't, and there was no like he was very forgiving and but he was very good at training guys too, you know.
Yeah.
So like if you needed work, he wouldn't really tell you you needed work. He would just help you, which was an extremely valuable leadership quality for him to have. Um, and granted, looking back, like I needed some work, but he was like, hey, yeah, yeah, we'd love to have you over in MARSOC. I'm like, cool, man, Um, so there was a little bit of that. Um, but during MARSOC Fire's course, it got cranked up, and he would put you through it and he would kind of let you know, like, okay, hey, you know, not in a like, he wouldn't be like lifing you out sort of thing, but he would kind of let you know, he's like, hey, what you're doing right now ain't gonna cut it. Here's some things you need to work on. So it was really cool in that fashion.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember he gave me, so he selected me for MARSOC, and then I came over, and then we were doing the MARSOC Fires course, and he gave me this pretty intense scenario. It had, um, I had to manage several sections of aircraft, um, and I had a kind of time crunched threat, with a unit I was with that we were taking contact, but another unit was taking contact, and there was an anti-air threat. Well, due to the, my screen blowing up from all the contact we were taking, I completely forgot about the anti-air threat, and I got one of my helos shot down, and it was pretty fucking embarrassing. Like even for being a simulator, like
anytime you fuck up, you're like, especially if it's something kind of bigger, and especially if it's in front of people are good, you're like, damn it.
right,
I'm not a piece of
absolutely,
shit, I swear.
Right. And he was like, no big deal, man. It's just, some things we got to work on, no problem. And we fucking worked on it. Holy shit, we worked on it, because, um, the, little to my knowledge, he was preparing me for John Dillard. So,
Big
if
John.
you know John Dillard, like, this fucking guy is like Cass and 0861 Jesus. Like, this fucking
Yeah.
guy, we used to
Yeah,
joke
he's another legend.
that, yeah, we used to joke that he kept the 0861 Bible, he kept the JCast and the J-Fire on his shitter, and he would read it while he's taking a dump. But, like, I legitimately believe he did. Like, this dude knew shit inside and out, and you had better have a fucking damn good reason why you're doing something um, in
Yeah.
CAS or artillery or naval gunfire operations. Because if you didn't, he was gonna fucking let you know about it. And like during controls, he would ask you dumbass questions like, okay, what's the max effective or what's the kill radius of this weapon system? And you're like, and you better fucking know, man, because if you fucking didn't, like, you were the biggest piece of shit on earth,
Yeah.
And but it was good though. It made you a much better JTAC, and it helped me to understand CAS a hell of a lot better. It made me real fucking sharp, and I can't thank him enough for it.
Yeah, he I went to the first when I went through the first class that they did of that, and
Yeah,
they were still trying to figure it out. They were like trying to get the class together, so they invited some of
right.
us from 10th Marines and stuff to come over and take part in it. And it was Tony Musselman was the I think he was
Oh
lead.
man, we
I
were
think he was
fixed
leading the
together.
classes. Yeah, he's a good dude, man. He
Hell of a
came from
guy.
5th over to 10th Marines to 210,
Oh,
and
nice.
then he worked with us for a little bit, and then one of the guys from 210 was out. I think it was Charlie 16. Also, he was with Charlie 16 and got killed in Marja in 2000. This was in 2010,
Oof.
and so Tony out of not expecting it was like, hey, you want to go to TCP school? Okay, you're a JTAC now. Okay, now you're
Shit.
going to be a combat replacement, and they sent him over, and then from there is when he went to MARSOC and stuff. But anyway, totally good dude. I need to hit him up and tell him to come on the show. I haven't talked to him in forever. I need to message
Absolutely.
him, have him see
He's
if he
got to
comes
have some
on.
great stories.
Yeah, he's a good dude. But what I was getting at was, I'd say one of the most impactful classes I've ever had in my career was given by John Dillard, and it was his like classified fratricide class where he would play the comm from an incident that happened in Afghanistan with a
Oof.
MARSOC controller, and
Oh,
you hear, and he's explaining it. He would pause it and explain what's going on. And you had the comm from the controller, you had the comm from the aircraft, and you had the team communication, and then you
yeah.
had a adjacent team communication because it was I think it was a MARSOC team and a Green Beret team moving through a village. And it's
Yeah.
actually kind of documented. This incident is kind of documented in what's that book? That MARSOC JTAC book.
Oh,
You know, what I'm talking about.
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I can't remember. Anyway,
Fuck.
that class and him, I don't know, you can just tell that he fucking cared. You know what I'm saying? And
Oh,
that
absolutely.
he was
He was
like, this
very
is
passionate.
bullshit. This shouldn't have fucking happened. This is why. And, he would go through all that stuff. And then, yeah, I don't know. I took what I learned from that class and I created like my own fratricide class, and I gave that based off of, because I was like, dude, that right there, like walking away from that, every time I got on the hooks, it was like, dude, I don't want to kill somebody that, one of my
Right.
buddies, so it's like, it makes you think about it, which is, I needed, because I was a brand new JTAC and I was getting ready to go to Afghanistan. So
Hmm.
that was good for me to come through and see that passion and just the knowledge, and so John Dillard passed away this year. Or was it this year? Yeah, it was. I want to say it was this year, unexpectedly. I didn't. I'll say I've only met him a handful of times. He's not a friend or anything like that. I don't want to
Yeah.
claim anything, but he is a legend within the community.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
he was actually the first at first ANGLICO. There's a plaque in the hallway of the Wild Eagle Award, and the unit kind of got stupid with it. By the time I left ANGLICO, they were giving everybody like a Wild Eagle certificate, for being at the unit. They're just giving people this award. But when it first came out and they were engraving it on this plaque, like they stopped doing it. But his is
Yeah.
the first name on there. Like he was the first person to like get that award, and like just so I just want people to realize that he was and I know the people that knew him that are listening to this know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like he was hardcore.
Yeah.
He was just like Top German. You better know what the fuck you're talking
Right.
about. Because
Absolutely.
if you try to bullshit it, he's going to call you on it, and you're going to look like an asshole.
And that was the thing,
So
like, a lot of guys were like, oh, fucking John Diller's a dickhead, da 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 da. Well, not a lot of guys, but some guys were. And then you actually meet the dude and you get the full John Dillard experience and you realize like, no, he's just really passionate because he knows what the fuck he's talking about. He knows what the deal is, and he wants you to be up to the standard, and that I can really respect, and I liked him for that. Um, and then like out in town, like drinking with the dude, cool as shit,
I never did that.
cool as shit, like total fucking awesome guy, But yeah, while you're supposed to be whipping it on, like he's like I fully trust him. If he said something, like I believe it for 100% fact. I take it as gold.
Yeah.
He was very knowledgeable, great fucking guy, and made everyone around him better. That's what I liked most about him. He made everybody fucking better. But, if you
That's all you
didn't
can
know
ask
what
for
you're
a guy like
talking
that.
about, he was gonna flush you the fuck out, which was good, but it kept everybody on their toes. So
Yeah. Yeah. So what other training did you do after? So now you've come over, you've done the MARSOC fires course or
yep,
MARSOF fire. Is it MARSOF? Did they call it SOF?
Marsoff, yeah, Marsoff fires. Yep,
Yeah. So you went through that course, and then I assume soon after that you were assigned to a team. What
yep.
was it like? What was it like checking into your team for the first time? Like walking into a room of guys that are raiders,
Yeah.
and go from there. Go ahead.
So walking into that room was, obviously like you build shit up in your head, and you're like, oh, these dudes are CSOs, they're certified fucking death dealers, all that in the third, and these dudes are at the height of their fucking combat careers and shit. And you walk in, and these dudes are just cool as shit. They're totally
Yeah.
fucking cool. All
Hmm.
of them are fucking bros, Um, obviously wildly different personalities,
Yeah.
but they were pretty damn welcoming. Like almost every one of them were a lot more welcoming than I thought they would be.
That's
I'll
cool.
put it that way. So it was kind of a um, different first experience from the other units I was with because kind of the other units there's that kind of feeling out period sort of thing, and you got to prove
Yeah.
yourself. But with these fucking dudes, like they trust you right off rip, and they were like, "Hey dude, you're the subject matter expert on what you do. We trust you fully. If you say something, then we fucking listen. If it's
Yeah.
something about, fire support, CAS, medevac, whatever, something in your fucking world, we're gonna shut the fuck up and listen to you. And that was kind of that in and of itself was kind of culture shock because you're not used to that. You're used to being in these massive briefs and like officers are like, oh, pish posh, this fucking enlisted swine doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, when it comes to cast, like everybody just shuts the fuck up. Like the floor is yours, dude. You know what you're talking about. Right on.
Did you ever see
and that
Did
was
you ever
that.
see a JTAC that was over there that lost the trust of their team?
Yes, and I'm not going to throw him under the bus because he's a
No, I don't
really
want you to
good
put any
guy.
names out there, but
He
what was
he
like the
he just
dynamic? How does that change the dynamics on a team?
um. eh, So I'll kind of tell the story because again, really good dude. He's incredibly smart. Like I can't give this guy enough credit for doing what he did. Looking back, um, he hadn't made it. He made one deployment as an 0861. I'm sorry, he made two deployments as an 0861, and then they sent him to TACP school, and then they sent him directly to MARSOC as like a replacement for somebody else who was supposed to go.
Okay.
Um, Extremely intelligent guy. Like looking back, like he was definitely a smarter JTAC than I was. He just didn't have the experience that I did as a JTAC.
Hmm.
So when we both went to Fort Irwin for the workup, and he was doing his thing and I was doing my thing, I had the experience because the Coyotes kind of set up this situation where um, blue on blue was likely, but if you knew certain things to do, you could avoid it. Um, and basically he kind of fell into the trap of a new guy, so he killed his own guys, and it was a massive deal. I mean, I felt horrible for this guy because this was like honestly like one of two times. Like I know this is gonna sound weird, but I just wanted to just fucking give the guy a hug, and just hold on to him for a while because it was him,
That
him
bad, huh?
and oh dude, like in training, like he wiped out like the majority of his team in training. I think there was like one or two guys that would have been alive for the rest of the op, but
Fuck.
the Coyote cadre or whatever the army calls them, they wanted to pull his designation. There was like he should not
That
be a
bad.
JTAC.
Jeez.
Yeah, but it was kind of like it was really circumstantial. Like I again, I'm not gonna say the guy's name because he's a really smart JTAC, really good fucking guy, took care of his dudes, but it was just this specific set of circumstances put him in a scenario that he was unfamiliar with, and he got a little overwhelmed. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And he sorted himself out after that. So it was just like the team kind of looked at him different a little bit, and like,
Did he
fuck,
stay
man,
on the
I
team?
felt, yeah, he stayed, and he earned the trust back of his guys very rapidly afterwards. Um, but it was just that moment where he's just like, fuck, man, at such a low point, and he's just like, I fucked up. Like, there was really nothing more to say about it. It's like, because like after the scenario was done and they kind of talked him through it and they're like, here's what happened, boom 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 boom, here's what you did, blah 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 blah, and he was just like, fuck, I fucked up, man. I'm like, hey
Yeah.
dude, it's all about how you move forward, like, yeah, you punted into the stands, but you got to
Dude,
push past it and we'll fucking
there's
move on.
nothing worse than like a bad control or something like that. You like for me personally, like I walk away like okay, one example, um this was I think it was after I got back from my 2013 deployment. I think it was right. It was
Yeah.
either right after I got back or right before I left. I can't remember. I had a section of F-18s check in. I was at BT-11 in North
Hmm.
Carolina, and when they checked in, I was like, hey, are you familiar with the area? And they're like, negative. And I'm like, oh, fuck. That means these dudes are new, because BT-11 is like a major place that all the pilots on the East Coast, that's like a place that they all go to. So if he hasn't gone there, then I'm like, okay, well, this guy's kind of new then. Going through everything, set up the attack. I'm looking at doing live guns, doing an IR pointer from the ground. IR pointer, and then obviously it was nighttime, and yeah, I think that was it. So, you know what it was? First time around, I was gonna have him drop an LGTR. He had an LGTR, which is, for those that don't know, it's a laser guided training round. Yeah. So he had like a fake laser guided bomb, and it actually falls off and does stuff, but it's not like a real bomb.
Sure.
Dude comes around. He's like, hey, bomb stuck on the wing. I'm going to have to come back around. I'm like, all right, cool. Can you do guns? A-firm can do guns. Comes back around, and I'm like, get the pointer on. We're doing the comms. He comes in. I'm like, hey, call visual tally. Calls visual tally in, blah, 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 blah. I get him cleared hot. Nothing. I don't get anything. He pulls off. -2. -2 was already, I was like the third controller, so I think -2 was already out of ordnance. He was Winchester. Right. So he wasn't going to shoot anyway. So when he pulls off, and I'm like, hey, state reason for not firing. And he's like, yeah, I forgot to take the safety off. And I'm like, come on, dude. Like, are you kidding me?
Come on.
So I'm like, all right, let's do this again. And everyone's on the ground, waiting on me to like do this control, because they were like, yeah, fuck yeah, night guns, nighttime. It's going to be guns off the aircraft. Awesome. It's going to be sick.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their phones out, recording it.
Right.
And he comes back around, same thing, everything's going right, and I'm like, hey, he calls in 250, and I was like, hey, confirm visual tally. He's like, I'm visual to target, tally friendlies, in 250 or whatever. And I'm like, I know what he means, cleared hot, know, and the arrow is like, abort, abort, abort. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, and he's just like, he did not, because he mixed up. He should have said visual friendlies, tally target. He got it mixed up. Right. And dude, I thought about that control for months.
Sure.
Probably over a year. It would come back up. I'd think about it out of nowhere, it would just pop into my head, and I'd just be like, God, what an idiot. And it's, I don't know. I think when you do something fucked up, if you actually care about the job, like when you do something fucked up, that's what happens, is you fucking think about it constantly. Like, why the fuck did I do that? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? And to top it off, to make it even shittier, so we aborted him because he made the wrong call. And, and they come back around. They're like, yeah, we're bingo. And they had to bounce. And I'm like, so then they didn't even get the attack. And I remember going down to the ground, and my buddy, Josh Gage, he's like, bro, what the fuck happened, man? And I'm just like, dude, I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Right. I was like going internal, because he didn't. That was really all he said to me. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he aborted him, and and that was it. He didn't say anything to me after that.
Right.
But it was enough that it cut me so fucking deep. I just felt so shitty. And but yeah, that's when you have a bad control, man. Like, for me, at least, it stays with me. It would stay with me, and it would be something that I would be like, all right, I'm gonna learn from this. And it would, for months, I'd just be sitting here watching TV or something, and then pop into my head, I'd be thinking about that control, be like, God damn it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I can imagine, obviously over there, the expectation is you're coming in and you're the guy. There's no air officer to support you. There's no other JTAC to lean on. Like, you're the team JTAC. You're expected to know it all.
You're James Brown.
Yeah. So how was beyond? So now you're on the team, and you've done some. How was your non-JTAC training? Like, what cool stuff did you get to do? That was like, everybody wants to go over to MARSOC and be a JTAC, or a lot of guys do. What's some of the cool stuff that was like, that was pretty wicked? I'm glad I got to do this.
Honestly, man, just seeing the capabilities that MARSOC had, and seeing the diverse group that made up MARSOC and made MARSOC effective. Because, if anybody is familiar with special operations community, MARSOC is kind of a beast of its own, because it comes inherent with everything that it needs. So a MARSOC team will come with, you know, snipers, doc, which most other special operations teams come with, but they come with a fire supporter, me. They come with multi-purpose K9. They come with intel, signals intelligence, counter interrogator. I mean, everything that you could ask for. I mean, really, they rivaled the capabilities of a battalion-sized element as a small team, a 20-man team, you know. So like looking at that, like I mean, our team had a skiff. We had our own skiff, you know, which was pretty sick, you know. So
Yeah.
everything that we needed, we came inherent with, you know. And then at the company level, you had um, definitely battalion level assets, you know, such as like motor T and you know, comm section and all these things. And it was just your own admin section. It's fucking great, you know. And everybody, like I said, was super professional. So it was really that getting to see, you know, how MARSOC brought all of its force multipliers to bear um, for combat and non-combat related operations. That was really fucking cool, you know. The gear, oh man, the gear was fucking glorious. Holy shit. Um, it was almost like the gear you got at MARSOC, it was almost like too much fucking gear. Like you would go to like, you know, you go to your bases, what's that fucking place that you get all your gear from?
What, Sif?
Um, SIF. Yeah, you go to SIF
Yeah.
and then MARSOC had its own SIF, so it was called MSIF. You know, and you go to them and you get like these two massive fucking sea bags full of shit. Like I had 4 plate carriers while I
Oh,
was at
really?
MARSOC. Yeah, just you know, as an example of some of the things. And each one of them had their own setup. You know, one was for a ship, one was for a patrol, one was for you know, dive if I had to do that, one was for jump. And it was just like all these different setups and all this the missions and the wide range of capabilities that they had, the professionalism that those guys had, but they were also wild. Like, don't get me wrong, these guys were fucking wild. Like, um, we had this one guy, uh, Lobo. I'm not gonna put him fully out there because he's still active, but um, I call him my favorite psychopath. Like this dude, totally psychotic, but one of the best point men I ever had. Like this dude could sniff out an ambush. He could sniff out damn near anything you put in front of him. IEDs, whatever. Like this dude was just awesome at his fucking job. And but he's totally crazy. Like, for instance, we were having a conversation once, and you know how Marines have dark ass conversations. And we're
Yeah.
just talking about like, oh, you know, if you had to kill somebody, how would you do it? You know, and we're just telling these nonsensical fucking tales of how we would kill somebody. It's just obviously total humor. And he just happened
People,
to be walking
regular
by. I
civilians are
think we're
listening to this like like nonsensical way, you know, killing people. Ha ha ha! Ha.
right.
You know, just fucking around.
Um,
Ha. Ha.
so, so I think we're in the chow hall, and he walks by, and he's like, "Oh, that's not how you kill someone." And we're like, "What?" He sits down, and he was like, "Listen, if you really want to kill someone and get away with it," and he's like leaning in towards us, you know, he's like, "If you really want to kill someone and get away with it, you find an old hospital and you get their metal detectors. There's a slight amount of radioactive material in
What?
it. You put it in their tea, and they'll have a heart attack. And by the time the coroner gets the examination, you know, and like, what the fuck, man?"
Like you
You
just took
know,
it to a different level, bro.
right? And we're all looking at this dude, and we're like, "Hey, dog, we're good, right? Like you and me, like we're friends. Like we're okay. I haven't done anything to piss
Don't
you
ever
off
accept a
lately."
cup of tea from them.
Right, no shit. And he was like, "Oh no, I wouldn't kill any of you guys that way." And he just gets up and walks off like nothing happened. Like,
All right, weirdo.
Okie dokie. But that was really like the only time he was socially awkward. Um, so we all took it very seriously. But no, like, all the guys, like I said, completely different personalities. Like I met a Nazi in the
What?
teams. Oh, dude, this fucking guy. Listen, you're
Like
not gonna believe
straight
it.
up?
Yes. Listen. So here's what happened. So we're getting ready for a training op. We deployed to Guam, and our teams deployed to different parts of the Southeast Asia from there. Um, we're getting ready for an op, and this dude is jocking up because he's part of the dive team. Well, he takes his socks off, and I'm putting my gear on, and he puts his foot, like, imagine we're standing about 2 to 3 feet apart in kind of a small room. He puts his foot, his left foot, like close to my left foot. And I look down and there's a swastika on his foot.
What?
So I see the swastika. I look up at him and he's like deadpan, not blinking, looking at me. And I look back down at the swastika and I look at him. He's still not blinking. Like, okay. And I just keep putting my gear on. Like, and he's like, well, what do you think about that? I was like, I mean, it's a swastika. What do you want me to think about it? He's like, that's not what I'm asking. What do you think about it? And I'm like, look, man, you don't really give a shit what I think about the swastika. You just give a shit about how I feel towards you. That's the deal here. I'm like, so if we're gonna get back down to brass fucking tacks, like, you do your fucking job, I'm gonna do my fucking job. That'll be the fucking end of it. We ain't gotta be friends. We ain't gotta associate with each other.
That's so fucked up.
Oh, for sure. And I'm like, I don't give a shit what you fucking do in your fucking free time. I'm like, you don't like fucking black people? That's your fucking problem, man. You're the one that has to avoid us. So good fucking luck, dude. You know, and I keep putting on my gear. And he's like, all right, fair enough. He puts his shit back on, and we carry on, and oddly
Was this
enough,
like a known thing? Was this like a known thing within the team that this
it
dude was like this?
it was a known thing, but it was just kind of like one of those things that nobody talked about, sort of deal, you know. Um, and oddly enough, dude, we were out in town later on, during that time, and there was this little scenario where we were, not me and him, but like us versus like other people on the island were fucking getting into it. And, we fucking started kind of squaring up with people. It turns out they weren't about that fucking life. But me and him we ended up back to back. Like, we ended up protecting each other, which was surprising, but not surprising at the time, because it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I had said my piece, like, hey, dude, you do your job, I'm gonna do mine, and that'll be the fucking end of it. I think he was trying to gauge my reaction as to how I would deal with the situation. Again, I don't know if the dude was full
Yeah,
on
but I mean,
Nazi or
what?
not, but
It's like what the fuck? Do you, I mean, what would someone like that expect to come out of a conversation like that? Like what the?
I don't
I
know,
mean,
man. I think,
and
and
to be
again,
like that towards another teammate or another guy that you're like
sure.
literally deployed with or doing stuff with,
Well,
it's like that's
he
so
he
fucked
was
up.
he was on another team. He wasn't on my team.
Yeah, but either
Um,
way, though, I mean,
Sure,
you're still
absolutely,
working in
yeah.
the same area.
One team, one fight, for sure. But I think, and again, this is me just trying to rationalize it, but I don't know if he was full on Nazi more so, or if he was just trying to see how I would react if I was a
Hmm.
good fit for my team. So again,
What?
I don't know the
Fuck
motivation
him. That's
behind
so
it. I'm
fucked
not
up,
going to
man.
assume like that. Yeah, right. That's crazy. And it's funny because I use that question on, or I use that story on interviews now. Whenever somebody asks me like, oh, well, how do you react to what do you call it? Like a coworker who isn't super cooperative. I'm like, psh, let me break out old reliable
You're
here.
like, been
You
there.
know, right. And I tell that story and they're like, holy shit, that's fucking crazy. I'm like,
I'm
well, it's
honestly
true fucking
surprised
story.
that like, I don't know, man. I'm surprised that he's still in. Like, people, going through courses and stuff like that, people are going to see that. Like,
Right. Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I don't know. I don't know if he's in still. I don't know if he's out. Like that was definitely a guy I didn't
would
even
you
attempt to keep tabs on.
you wouldn't view that as like a prevalent thing though? Was that like a one-off kind of
No, 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 no,
situation?
no, 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 no.
No, it wasn't a
Not,
one-off kind of situation, or no that it's not
not,
prevalent?
and again, I'm not trying to give the Marine Corps a black eye here, but there were a few gatekeepers of the glass ceiling, so to speak. And I'm not trying to get political at all, but there were definitely a few guys that were not about having us, so to speak, dark green Marines in their Marine Corps
That's so
doing their
fucked
Marine
up.
Corps thing. It,
Especially
but
in a community like that. It's not like you're
right,
at some pogue unit where everybody's miserable and like we're all kicking
absolutely.
boxes all day and it's just like a regular job. It's like this is like a
But
legitimate unit where you're like
right.
leaning on each other.
Well, the thing was these guys were definitely more so in the sort of senior positions, more so getting ready to phase out sort of guys. But it was just kind of like they couldn't stop. They couldn't stop time, so to speak. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It was like, well, you may not fucking like it, but this shit's gonna fucking happen, whether you like it or not. And it was just kind of one of those things. And it was very rare to run across that, but somehow I was able to sniff out a couple of those guys. I mean, it
Yeah.
is it is what it is, and
I
I
mean,
I don't really harbor animosity towards them because I think there's a lot that goes into it because it depends on A, what you're exposed to, B, what kind of fucking guy is coming in, how he reacts to that, because there's several ways to react to that. I could have blown up on that fucking guy and we could have been you know, throwing fists at each other, but I chose not to. And again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything of the sort, but I just chose to not give him an explosive reaction, and we ended up helping each other out later on. So it was fine.
yeah,
But
that's crazy though.
so it's one of those things. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say I ran. I mean, so I will say that what I kind of irks me about people's view on the military is that the military should do no wrong. Like police officers, like, oh, like anytime something happens, like, oh, can you believe he did that? It's like,
Right.
dude, the military and police officers and shit like that are all made. They're slices of American society. Like, there's going
Sure.
to be a little bit of everything. So you're going to run into racists. You're going to run into, everything
Absolutely.
from the left, everything from the right, everything in between. And
Hmm.
I will say, I'm sure I ran into some like I know. Well, I will. Yeah, I know. I did. I ran into a couple overtly racist people,
Sure.
but they were never. They would never act like that in front of other people, just because they probably thought that you're going to get their ass kicked if they did, which
Yep.
is funny. Uh, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just the people I ran around with were just cool people. I just
Well,
it.
you know
I
what?
couldn't imagine. I've never seen anybody with a Nazi tattoo or something like that on them,
That
though.
that brings up another little fun tidbit. So, do you remember that? Do you remember those racial riots in Virginia? And you remember the guy
Oh yeah,
who,
yeah.
in his Challenger, ran over a couple of people?
Oh yeah.
So that guy was a part of a group that was led by, fuck, one of my junior 0861s had texted me about it. He was the leader of their group was actually a guy we both worked with at 5th Battalion, 11th Marines. Um,
Was he a comm guy?
no, he was 0861. He was total fucking weirdo.
Really? Th-
Glasses. Fuck. I'm gonna
There
have
was
to
a
text you his
guy.
name later.
There was a
But
guy at that same rally that I worked with at First Anglico. So I guess there's that. I guess I forgot about him. I didn't know, like, I got back from deployment. This dude was there as like the spectrum manager or whatever it is, the guy that,
yeah,
runs the data cage,
yeah,
with all the secret stuff.
yeah,
And
Skiff.
total weirdo, sucked at his job. He was a lap mover from something else, and he was so shitty at his job. He fucked up so much stuff at Anglico that they sent him up to meth. They reassigned him to meth to be under the supervision of another person in his job and to be retrained in how to do it. And then they had to redo a lot of
Wow.
they had to redo a lot of how you do the SOPs and stuff because of him. Well, then
Wow.
like a year later or whatever, somebody's like, dude, check this out. And they send a photo and it's him. I'm like, no way. And he's one of the leader dudes. They're like, they remember him from Anglico? And I'm like, this dude is a fucking moron. I'm like, that's one of their leaders? Like, God. They're all idiots, apparently. But
Like, I know you can bleep it out, but do you remember his name?
I don't remember his name. And I honestly ran into him like 2 times. Like the first time I met him, I remember walking out to the parking lot. He's, like I said, super weird dude. And he's like, hey, how's it going, man? I was like, what's up, dude? And there was next to the first Anglico compound, there's an LZ, and we would go out there and jump on our helicopters to fly out to San Clemente Island, or we would do fast roping and stuff like that. Well, there's a group out there doing spy rigging, which for those that don't know, that's where they have like a 100-foot rope or whatever it is, and you all hook into it, and you helicopter takes off, and you're dangling under the helicopter flying around. And these guys were lifting up doing spy rig, and he's like, oh, look, they're spy rigging. He's like, I wish we got to do cool stuff like that. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, those are our dudes. Like,
Dylan Harper. That's his name.
yeah.
Dylan Harper. Yep.
Call him out. Fuck him.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Continue with your story.
No, I think it's crazy that we both know somebody that was at that rally.
Yeah. It was crazy because one of my 0861s texted me. He was like, dude, did you see fucking this group, the fucking guy that ran all those people over? That's Harper's fucking group. I was like, what? And he sent me the article. Rally. Yeah. And he was like, Dylan Harper. And I was like, holy shit. Or Hopper, Dylan Hopper.
There's some Dylan Harper out there like, it wasn't me, man.
It wasn't me, man. Like, sorry, bro.
That's crazy.
This fucking dude was a weirdo for the longest time. But then he, God, there's this picture. Yep. Fucking Dylan Hopper. Like he was a weirdo, but then he, and again, I'm not trying to talk shit about the Masons, but like he joined the Freemasons and then this dude went off the fucking like high and right. Like, holy shit, what happened?
Oh, really?
And then a couple years later, here he is fucking encouraging his members to run over people. So. Whatevs.
That's crazy, man. Fucking people, man.
Right.
It blows my mind that they're. I don't know, man. I've been around obviously racist people. Everyone's been around racist people. I mean, I grew up in Tennessee. I grew up in southern Tennessee, and I remember going to the like the Chickamauga battlefield in Georgia. And people. There's like Confederate stuff everywhere. Like it's the South. That's how it is. Like and you kind of look at some of the people that are really into the Confederate stuff, and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you, weirdo? Like I get it, Southern pride and all that stuff, but it gets to a point where you're like, all right, you're just a fucking weirdo now.
Right.
But I don't know, man. Just to see it, the whole swastika thing on the foot thing, that blows my mind because that's like overt. Like you're not even trying to hide it at that point.
Sure.
Because I don't know. All right. So we're over 3 hours. We're at 3 hours and 20 minutes actually. I put it on my Instagram to ask some questions to see if anybody had questions. So I'm going to go through these real quick. It said, what year were you with 11th Marines?
I was with 11th Marines. Let's see. So after the 3rd LAR deployment, so 2011, and then in 2012, I went to 2.5, and then 2013 again with 11th Marines,
Okay.
and then I went to MARSOC.
And
So
when you were with 11th Marines though, the only time you were with the battalion was when you were with 511, right?
right.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. All right, next question. What was the best and worst fire mission you've ever done?
I think so. Are we talking CAS as well?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I think best fire mission obviously is going to be the ZPU. I mean, that's my claim to fame. I
Yeah,
killed that thing in
that's wicked.
Afghanistan. Worst would definitely have to be the SAVT, where I got a helo shot down in front of uh, Gunny Norman, who was evaluating me for MARSOC, and like it was the worst just because not only because I got a helo shot down, but like you watch the thing burning and it's like falling like not even
Yeah,
close to the speed of
and
gravity.
the simulator. Some people that
Oh,
don't know
dude,
what
it
we're
was
talking about
terrible.
are probably like, "What?"
There's like six
Yeah,
dudes behind you watching it. It was just kind of like, that
you got
sucks.
that pit in the bottom of your stomach, like I
Right,
fucked up.
right,
Man,
absolutely.
what's the number one rule of call for fire? That's a
Oh,
trick
fucking
question, I think.
damn, dude.
I think they mean what's the number one rule for forward observers? I think that's what
Well,
they're trying to get at there.
you gotta always have a pen.
Always look cool, man. What are you
For
talking about?
number
Have a
one.
pen. Rule number one is
Well,
always look cool. Rule number two is
Gunny
never
Mc,
get
dude,
lost.
Gunny McNeese drove that into us. Like, good old 6-1 always has a pen. Like, okay, Jesus Christ.
I mean, if you want
Um,
to be practical, I guess.
yeah, target location, dude. Like, you got to know where the bad guys are at, and you got to know where you're at.
Yeah.
And like you say, rule number one, look cool. Yeah.
How many? This one's what places did you travel to during service? So
Jesus
how many countries have
Christ.
you been to? Do you think? You
Fuck.
don't have to go try to remember them all, but
Uh, like
what are
20-ish.
your top three places you went
Australia,
non-combat?
number one.
Yeah.
Australia,
What part of
without a
Australia were you in?
fucking doubt. I was in Darwin, and
Really? Everybody says Darwin sucks.
dude, I loved Darwin. It was fucking
Really?
awesome. Because
Huh.
the reason I love Darwin is because everybody goes to Sydney, but all the Europeans go to Darwin,
Really?
and you get a cross section of Europe, and oh my God, the white girls that you get to see there, holy shit.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, oh
I
my
never made it to
God.
Australia. I need to get out there.
Oh, it's an amazing time.
What's your
Amazing
number
time.
two and three spot?
Number two, fuck man. Um, I guess maybe like Thailand because you can just there's almost like no fucking rules there.
I've never been to Thailand either,
Um,
man. Fuck. Everybody keeps talking about Thailand.
that's a great place to go.
Yeah.
Number three would be, I guess, Japan, just to experience that culture. I mean, there's so much to experience and see there.
Yeah.
But
Did
once you
Did you ever
see
make
and
it to
do
the
it all, you've
mainland,
seen and done
or
it
did you
all.
stay in Oki the whole time?
No, I never made it to the mainland just because of training and deployment cycle.
I wonder how much different the mainland is from somewhere like
Oh,
that.
it's wildly different from what I hear,
I understand.
depending on where you go.
I've heard that mainland Japanese people kind of look down on Okinawans.
Yes,
Like they're not
because they're
fully Japanese, you know?
yeah, they're a poor, more like farmer people, and they're kind of like that place that Japan kind of annexed almost, so to speak.
Hmm.
It's yeah, it's definitely a weird relationship there.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, this one says, "What size peen are you working with?" So you don't worry about that one.
That's amazing.
It's good questions, man. You know, I have good people out here. What's the
Absolutely.
best working relationship to have with an FSO or JFO? That's kind of a weird question. Just be a professional one, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, like,
You're gonna get close
y
to those people when you're working on
yeah,
a fist or a fict or a assault.
you gotta train them, man. Like, honestly, the best relationship to have with those guys is to give them everything you didn't have as what they were, so to speak. So like um my like I had a JFO for my second Afghan deployment, and I just tried to let him have the cool experiences. I was like, hey man, like we got this really fucking badass mission. He got to go out with SAS, like British SAS, and do some snooping and pooping and do some really cool shit. And the op was offered to me, and I was like, no, let my JFO take it. I trust him. He's a good fucking dude. He knows his shit. He knows how to relay information to me. So yeah, let him fucking take it. And just making sure he gets credit for things, because I think that really builds up their confidence so that they can eventually become JTACs and effective JTACs.
Yeah, some people
So
forget you can't just beat people down all the time. You gotta give them
right,
a hey, good job every once in a while, or they just feel
right,
defeated constantly.
absolutely.
This one is, but was your hair game on point? Gotta step that coif game up, son. It's a little short,
Fucking
It's just you got the
yeah, dude. I was all about that fucking cheap life. Fucking buzz cut that shit every fucking chance I got. Like I got one actual haircut when I was in the Marine Corps, and that was from some fucking PX barber, and she gave me this high and tight, and I ended up looking like a fucking carrot. It was just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen on my head, and I was like, never fucking again.
there's nothing worse than a
So,
really bad haircut where you're just like, God
ah,
damn, I gotta
nothing
walk
worse.
around with this.
Everybody's gonna clown you. It's like, you fucking paid for that shit? I'm like, yeah, dog. Like,
Yeah, right. I think last question was being with the Raiders worth it? They're debating on going.
um, so it was absolutely worth it in the sense that I got to work with the most highly motivated people with the best fucking gear, with the most badass fucking missions. However, there was absolutely meticulous mission planning, and um, if you have a family, it is not the ideal environment for a family. I was gone roughly every 2 weeks for 2 weeks to a month, and my son was just born when I was about halfway into our workup when my son was born, and I just remember hating life purely due to that aspect, because there's a lot of things which did not require JTAC integration, so I'd just be fucking sitting there, and I'm doing nothing. And I remember looking at one of the Intel guys, and I was like, dude, I could be doing nothing at home with my wife and child, and this just
Yeah.
fucking sucks. So if you're single and you want to do the high speed, low drag missions, absolutely, it's 100% worth it. If you're married, you got some decisions to make. They need guys that are married, that are more mature, that will make smart long-term decisions as well. But you know, it can be a drag for that reason. And I will also say, I kind of fell into the trap because I love doing those high speed, low drag things. And you can only do that for 5 years, and then you got to go back to the fucking fleet. And I didn't want to fucking do that. That's one of the major reasons I got out. So
Yeah.
if you want to stay around that community forever, do not expect to. There's always the chance you can go to DevGru, because we had a guy leave from MARSOC as an 0861 and go to DevGru. Um, but that position is very few, far between. And if you think the op tempo of MARSOC is bad, that is way worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when I talked to them, they were like, hey, expect 200 plus days a year, away from home, plan for
Yep,
that. And people
it's
are just like,
intense.
what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's super intense.
Well, man, I'm gonna have you on again at some point so we can talk about your firefighting and stuff like that, like getting out and the
Yeah,
transition to becoming a firefighter, and because you said you before you're working at 3 fire stations right now, right?
yeah. I work at Cleveland full time, Copley Township part time, and Medina part time.
Cool. I think that'll be a good, another good episode, and then I'm sure people will have follow up questions once they listen to this one. But I appreciate you coming on. Do you want to shout out your own Instagram or any kind of organizations or anything like that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram if you want to. Quentin Brown. That's pretty much what you'll put in, and you'll find me. Really, the only organization I want to shout out is PAVE. Peer Advisors for Veterans Education. It's a organization found on different campuses that help veterans adapt to college and civilian life. They can help you from everything from getting tutoring to finding a job to, how do I do better in the school environment. So, great organization that has ran and operated, or started up and operated by veterans. Highly encourage guys to take advantage of that because it's other veterans with a wealth of knowledge that are very willing to help you. That's about it, man.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Everyone, check out my page. It's J Kramer Graphics. My website's jkramergraphics.com. I also have the Former Action Guys Instagram page. I'm on Twitter, number 4, MER Action Guys, and you can hit me up on email at formeractionguyspodcast@gmail.com. If anybody has any questions for me or for Mr. Quentin Brown here, then I can forward those on to him, or we can talk about it on the next podcast. So check it out, and I'll be back on, next week or maybe sooner. You never know.